In the universe where the gods amuse themselves controlling human destiny, a boy finds himself caught in the middle of a colossal mess, facing monsters and crazy rules. The forces of darkness are spreading, and he, unknowingly, is one of the chosen ones to tip the scales. With each breath, another challenge arises, presented by grandiose voices from beyond, signaling that the next mission is on its way. But who are these beings really, and how do they choose their new champions? Our protagonist, a guy who just wanted to live in peace, discovers that this won't happen so easily. He has to deal with betrayals, strange alliances, and powers he never imagined he possessed. About to face a new challenge, the pressure mounts and time runs out. The thread that separates life from death becomes thinner with every reflection of his struggle. With his life hanging by a thread, a fatal choice is about to be made, and our hero wonders if he will truly survive what is to come. The name of this boy is Yoo-hyun. He wonders if this is where he will find the end of the line. He takes a piercing from a demonic spear, and only an elixir can save his skin. Then comes Yoo-hyun's Shoy, all snobby, saying he could have killed the monster without help, but in reality, he only survived because of Yuri. And look at that, Yoo-hyun's Shoy has an elixir, but won't share with Yoo-hyun because it's super rare. It was me, and, accepting the crap situation, I just watched the lucky notification windows. Comment on his impending death. These crazy gods, called divine spirits, love to have fun making humans fight. Meanwhile, a voice from beyond appears, like a wish meter suite of the gods. It warns that the next challenge is coming and tells Yoo-hyun and his Shoy to run, like with their pets. Also, the girls get pissed, but Yoo-hyun's Shoy pulls a stunt and they leave, putting Yoo-hyun in a bind. Suddenly, Yoo-hyun plummets and embodies a rice ball, or whatever. It seems everyone who dies turns into this, and the alien voice says they will work for them. From now on, they are thrown into space with a time limit. 1 hour to make a contract or disappear forever. Yoo-hyun notices that the land is still standing and goes back in time. Good or bad, he realizes that the monsters haven't arrived yet, and that the chosen ones will be responsible for fighting them. He transforms back into his own body, leaving the voice from beyond speechless. What would normally take a month for rookies, Yoo-hyun thinks an hour to find a contract is easy. After all, who wouldn't want a contract with an accountant? But upon returning to the land, he discovers that reality isn't that simple. He sees floating books above people's heads, bronze, silver, and gold, showing each person's total skill. He only finds people with silver and bronze books and thinks, wow, what now? Only 1 minute left. The voice from beyond mentions that there were high expectations, but now with a minute left, it's tough to form a contract. Then Yoo-hyun starts thinking and remembers 3 legends called Trio Milagroso, who were the tough ones. He puts the name of one down and boom, he is teleported to a dormitory where he finds Kangja Hiron, calm and savoring ramen. The girl is startled and pretends to call the police, but Yoo-hyun is so caught up in his own world that he doesn't even hear. The only thing that catches his attention is a golden book she has. He wants to sign a contract with her. Rayrim, extremely shocked, asks if he is serious, because everyone says her skills are terrible. Riem realizes she is unaware of her potential and explains that he is there exactly because of her hidden talent. All excited, she asks where to sign, and the guy pulls up the contract with a pen, but time is running out. There are only 15 seconds left. He rushes, while the tension soars. She finishes signing, but the timer hits 0 with 2 seconds left. The system window confirms that the mission was accomplished, and Ryun remembers his promise to live without regrets. He tells the girl that he is excited to work alongside her, and she just asks him to take care of her. Then, he opens the golden book that holds Ryarim's past. And what he discovers is a shock. Not 1, but 3 protagonist specializations. One of them awakened, and her power level is already absurd. One of the talents is like a Chuck Jones story, with 3 high-level skills. Imagine the power she would have if she awakened all that potential. And Riem asks if she is aware of this, but Irene still thinks the talents are weak. She explained that during training they were told not to talk about them, but Yoo-hyun just remembered that we have a contract. And she laughed, saying that the name of the talent was Master of Swords of the Goryeo era, thinking it was a joke. And Hyun was stunned and confirmed that she had never told anyone about her abilities. She said people never asked, terrified that he would cancel. She confirmed she wouldn't let that happen, but he calmed her by saying he was not disappointed. At that moment, a system notification appears. He is now an official employee, and the first mission is to go to the augural ceremony. He tells Rierim that he needs to leave, but doesn't even know for how long. He asks what equipment she uses. 1, everything, she replies. She explains that since she wasn't good at combat, she thought being a defender made sense. Incredibly, the instructors made her use a spear, anything but a sword. That made Yuri furious. He told her to listen carefully. Trade that shield for a sword and train to death. That's it. She asked how, and he reaffirmed, only then will you understand your true potential. He accepted the mission, and before teleporting, gave one last warning. Train later. Rairinha was at a construction site, sword in hand. She was questioning if she would really learn, swinging that thing. She had never held one before. She started making some random movements, but suddenly, everything made sense. Her movements became precise and fluid, a natural grace taking over, something inexplicable. When Yuri returned, more time had passed than he imagined. He arrived where she was and was amazed by her progress. Firm posture, complex movements without any lesson. He smiled like, it's no surprise that one day she'll be called the Empress of the Sword. His appearance startled her. What's up? How long have you been there? She shouted. He just said he didn't want to interrupt. She said she wasn't even training seriously yet. On the system screen, a new mission appeared, the mission of his life. He had to collect stories and build a library to earn the promotion. Jaren, confused, asked what he was doing or building a library. He explained. She was shocked, like, wouldn't that be the first thing for a trader? He said it was just the beginning of the job, but she seemed not to believe it. He assured her there was no reason to lie, and then a text box popped up for naming the library. Looking at the suggestions, he got stressed with those ridiculous options, and Riam asked if he really had to choose one of those names to catch the spirit's attention. One name caught his attention, and he decided to take a look at the library. He saw a collector surrounded by several small monsters, while people were commenting for him to give up. The divine spirits weren't posting about the story, and Riam soon realized that doing business with that collector was a bad idea. He decided to leave the library for later and started planning his own. He quickly asked Irene if she was ready to pick up the sword, and she seemed a bit confused. The two teleported to a place where there was a portal. The girl asked where they were, and he explained that it was the entrance to the world of thoughts, full of myths and legends. Before the portal, Yorian spoke about the voice from beyond, the one that tells stories to the higher spirits, and that's how it happened. Turning to Ryarim, he said he had a question for her. Did she already know the implications of the stories they were about to show? She asked if it was the story of a main character, and he confirmed it was something like that. But each story could be of a different genre. Among so many stories, there was one genre that stood out, the heroic tales. Before the portal, Ryun declared that from now on, she would be the Yuryun of the heroic tales. She was still uncertain, but he assured her he would help. Cut to a mountain full of kobolds. Yui asked if she knew anything about them, and she replied that she knew a little. He then opened the system window and his library. At that moment, some higher spirits began to enter curiously to see what stories would be told. He started introducing himself to them, and soon realized that they were the same ones who left negative comments in the other library. Before the story even began, the critiques started, and Rio noticed that they were there just to see him fail. Taking a step back, he explained that he was going to the observation room to tell his story, and that she would have to fight alone. This left the girl terrified. Trying to calm her, he told her that she would do well. She just needed to swing her sword like before. In the next moment, huge feet of a monster appeared. Rayrim panicked and started screaming, but Yum told her to believe in herself. Nervous, she said that even though he said that, the fear was still real. The monster prepared to attack while she whined in fear. The kobold attacked quickly, and Aaron made an awkward dodge and started screaming for help as paranoia took over. She stumbled and fell, which ultimately saved her from a potentially fatal attack. The spirits began to criticize, saying they hoped she would go to the coffin, and she became completely paralyzed. Voices echoed in her mind, reminding her of moments when she was mocked for her abilities. Sarcastic comments appeared, saying she could barely seal a contract. She began to cry, holding her shield as if it were protection against the bullies. In a scene of despair, she was in her room looking at that shield, so depressed that she didn't want to go out. Ryan wondered if she had the courage to follow through with the journey, or if she would return to her comfort zone. She remained paralyzed, trapped in her memories. The sword lightly cut her arm, but it changed her motivation. She decided that she no longer wanted to run away. If she did, she would be useless. Even in that situation, she needed to act since she had found the box she wanted to make a contract with. If she fled, she wouldn't even be able to face the Lord. Holding her sword firmly, she realized that no matter what happened, she wouldn't be a coward anymore. Watching the scene nervously, she heard a name and warned someone to dodge the incoming strike from the kobold. But in the next moment, she lifted her gaze and her eye. When that happens, things are going to get serious. Raising her sword, she was able to stop the kobold's attack with monstrous strength. Looking up, with blood in her eyes and hatred in her heart, she delivered an incredible blow and defeated the enemy in one fell swoop. The divine spirits were stunned by the turnaround. Even the master of ceremonies was left speechless. After the battle, Rian could only think that she would never run away again, she would never fear again, and Rihun was satisfied. This was the true Rian gang. That's how you wield a sword. A yellow light emerged from the kobold's body and went into the girl's armor. A system message notified her that she gained 7 points. Shocked, she finally grasped what she had just accomplished. As she celebrated shyly, Rihun appeared in the system window congratulating her on the achievement. However, her fight was not over yet. New enemies were emerging to avenge their fallen comrade. Meanwhile, she remembered that this world had plenty of good things waiting, so it was not time to stop. It would be much better if she became more ambitious and wanted more. Several donations came in for her. Now, she was much more confident in herself and even excited to see what would happen next. The kobolds attacked en masse, but the girl was undeterred. She drew her sword again, ready to take them all down. Yoren was impressed with the number of views on Riren's stories. It was already more than 15 in less than an hour. In fact, I was mistaken. The one watching was an employee amazed by Yuri's results. His name was Tao Dan. He was incredulous, thinking that this couldn't possibly be true. Even believing that Yuri had some trick up her sleeve, Tao Dan decided to investigate further. He opened the collector viewer window and was left speechless, stammering, wondering who that woman was. She had no protection, and her sword was quite ordinary. After seeing many collectors, it was the first time I saw someone so promising. She just kept getting stronger. The kobolds, realizing they couldn't handle Riren, started to cry and flee. Yuren noticed she had evolved quickly. Convinced, he began to question the divine spirits about what they thought of Riren, but she warned him that this was just a glimpse of what she was capable of. She could do much more than that. The donations kept coming in strong, and she was receiving insane amounts of money. In front of a red fence, she grew curious, asking what that was all about. He informed her that this was no longer the cultivation area. It was a creation of the collectors to accumulate points more efficiently. She stated that she understood, but didn't hesitate to grip her sword. The Counter Senior, witnessing the scene, was left speechless. She had already reached the border. At first, John asked if anything was disappointing her. She confirmed that yes, now that it was over. Frustration had set in. Yoyum made it clear that it wasn't over yet. Now it was time to go all the way under his guidance. She would cross the border and clear that mental domain that would be erased forever. Clearing a domain was already another thing. In another part, few have the courage to face these mental domains due to a lack of skill. That's why they created the border and avoided clearing these domains. Raren asked if everything was all right, and he said she could blame him if anything went wrong. Moreover, she didn't seem like the type to give up. Excited, the girl asked if her enthusiasm was that obvious, and he confirmed. The divine spirits were also enjoying it, applauding the scene. She decided she would clear the domain, as he had taught. While Yori called for support for Ryren, the lizard box was keeping an eye on what she would do. Raren prepared to attack, but he doubted she could destroy the edge. One and one must never give up on their goals. Ryren jumped and charged forward. More donations came in for her because that's what it means to be a true heroine. The lizard box was desperate. The situation was out of the ordinary. She had already had an audience before. The story was full of twists, but the collectors took the easy route. As a result, the spirits lost interest. Because of this, they decided to cause an apocalypse to try for a more interesting story. The river knew that the world was going to end this way, so it wanted to create a future different from its past life. This change came from humanity itself, not from an external intervention. These were the chronicles of the Empress of the Sword, and they had already reached 25 viewers. In that story, Yoyum appeared again and congratulated her for reaching the deepest part of the mines. She was happy to see him, and it was somewhat obvious. But what he really noticed was that she was no longer afraid. They said they were almost there. He suggested that she take a break, and she agreed, sitting down and admitting that she was tired. Juom realized that despite her skills, her body still couldn't keep up. She needed to be more resilient. He asked her what she thought about fighting with a sword, and she replied that it was the best thing in the world. They should have started like that. Looking at her book, Ryan noticed it was shining brighter than usual. What she had achieved today must have changed something inside it. He decided not to check on that now, so he talked about them waiting for her as a group at the end of this mental domain. There was probably a leader since the movements were well coordinated. Her face did not show any nervousness, and Yo Hyun asked what she planned to do. If she wanted, they could stop there. She chuckled and asked if he was joking, but he wasn't. Standing up, she declared that she was going to finish everything, because that's her ninja way. There was no way he could act foolish after everything that had happened. He said he wasn't going to do that, being responsible for what he said, and asked if they could go now, she confirmed. Ian smiled slightly, seeing that she was much more confident and that he wouldn't need to hold back. The warning was clear. It was going to be dangerous, so she needed to have a goal in mind. He asked if she knew how to clear domains, and she replied that yes, it was that simple. Clearing was an invasion, and the move was to defeat everyone, but it was necessary to focus on the leader first. There were various ways to clear a mental domain, but in this case, she only needed to take down a specific monster. This idea made her super excited. The girl was already heading toward the boss, even singing, but the master of ceremonies asked her to wait. She needed to switch weapons first. She asked why, but looking at her sword, she noticed it was all damaged. Any hit would break it for good. The girl began to cry in distress, and Yoren remarked that she did well for a beginner's sword. Trying to calm her down, he opened the shop and showed her that she had gathered a lot of points, listing the best options. She complained about the prices. It was all she had gathered, but she had no choice. She spent everything on one of them. The sword appeared beside her. It looked like a rapier, or perhaps a katana. The curved blade left some doubt. Ryan praised the sword, but she was still crying over the loss of her points. He told her that now she could earn more. It was time to go. The kobolds were waiting for their leader, dealing cards with their subordinates. Rerum had already arrived, blaming them for the sword change since the first one had broken. The kobolds, sweating in fear, noticed Rerum coming. She was a real monster never seen before, charging at the creatures. The girl screamed that she had to spend all her savings on a new sword because of them. A powerful strike. An explosion erupted, sending several monsters flying. Heron yelled that everyone was doomed and began to dismember them mercilessly, complaining about the lost points. Hatred shone in her eyes and she jumped to attack the boss. It's amazing how losing money messes with people's heads. Crying in despair, the cowardly boss began to scream, but it was already too late. With one blow, Heron severed his head, ending that reign once and for all. The scene shifts to a cafe, where the girl is eating a cake so delicious that she can hardly believe it's real. The yo-yo asks if it was really that good while sipping his coffee, and she confirms. She's never eaten anything this good in her life. And so the adventure continues. Ryan thought her reaction was exaggerated, but hey, after years of eating cheap medicine, one can understand. He remarked that if she wanted, she could eat this every day. As long as he keeps taking the hits, no points. Like today, he just can't gain weight, right? Because we know how these things work. Then the girl changes the subject and asks what he was talking about regarding knowing her talent. He explains what Goriel meant and questions if she knows the guy named Chucky Jung Yong. She makes a face like she's not in the loop. We find out that Jung Yong was just an ordinary soldier, a rather bland public servant. One day, he climbed the walls of the castle, dominated by the Yuding tribe, and cleared the area. And not only did he defeat the enemies there, but he also carried out a true massacre, taking out tens of thousands. Rumors spread that he had exceeded human limits and earned the title of Master of Swords of the Goryeo era. Hiren was impressed by the story, but was curious because she had never heard of him. Yoyum commented that his friend's name was kind of strange. She became even more intrigued and wanted to know what the name was, but the Master of Ceremonies played hard to get. He even dodged the question, saying it was something like Voldemort. She insisted, but Raihun felt awkward and asked her to stop because the vibe was really strange. And then, if she wanted to know, she should look it up herself. She took out her phone and went to search, not believing that this name could be so ridiculous, but upon discovering, the girl blushed like a tomato. I saw it was the Korean version of king size. Dude, furious, threw the phone at Yo Hyun's head, already labeling him a pervert and saying that the report she'd make would be against him. Yo Ri-hoon told her that even if he vanished from the story because of the name, it didn't diminish his strength. Ryan questioned if this meant her talent was different. This made Yo Ri-hoon wonder where she would end up, when she would become the true Empress of Swords. He continued, piercing her arm, saying there was no time for talk and that it was time to act, but she protested, saying she hadn't even finished her cake. Aaron asked if he really thought everything was fine for him. He said that from his perspective, it was perfect, nodded, and told them to signal it was time to go. The spirits began to enter the room, and he noticed there were many more people than in the first story. Some spirits were surprised. Their reactions varied, and Yu Hyun grew curious. He realized the reason. They had never seen Yerim so well dressed. The woman was leaving everyone drooling. Will Hyun thought that if you asked what the best trait of a character was, many would vote for her. But for the second important trait, the answers would change. For him, looks always prevailed. He was sure she would attract much more attention being beautiful, and he wasn't wrong. Before moving on to the next domain, there was something she needed to learn. He gave her a story he had purchased and asked if it was the first time she was seeing it. She replied that it was. Despite all her talent, she still had to prepare for each mission, and that would help. The girl thanked him for it. She started to absorb the stories, and Yu Hyun asked how she was feeling. She said she felt rejuvenated, and he commented that it was great because most collectors ended up feeling bad afterward. Yurim wanted to ask what kind of points he used to get those stories, but Hyun interrupted, saying it was showtime. Upon entering the new domain, she asked what place it was. It was kind of a maze, but again Yuri interrupted her. She began to act serious and described the area as desolate and empty. Yuri explained it was the maze of Crete. Several attempts had been made to clear it, but without success, and now this was her mission. She wanted to ask why no one had succeeded, and he explained that they had never discovered the necessary conditions. As she walked through the corridors, she began to see the bodies of those who had gotten lost there. The girl was terrified, but Yorian asked her to stay calm. He explained that those bodies belonged to newcomers. Over 100 were already watching her story, and the guy was gaining a lot of engagement. Hyun noticed that the storytellers were trying to steal ideas from her, but he didn't care. His goal was to gain loyal fans. For both of them, Hyun took a spool of thread and gave it to Yerim. She wanted to know what that thread was for. Mazes are complicated, and this one was one of the worst in the legend. TZ used a thread to avoid getting lost, and she should do the same. With his last words, he wished her good luck before teleporting away. The system appeared to her saying that she just had to keep moving forward without looking back. As if it were a trivial task, she accepted the challenge and began to unravel the thread while donations kept coming in, all from someone named XXXXXX. Yerim passed through the corridors between bodies, leaving a trail to avoid getting lost. Yuri noticed that her resilience was above average, gaining calm amidst the chaos. Turning the corner, she surveyed the area more closely. Keeping her composure, she finally found what seemed to be the center of the labyrinth. Could the boss of this place be the Minotaur from mythology? A light shone from the portal, and Yun asked her to wait, but it was already too late. A Minotaur over 5 meters tall appeared, snorting and about to attack. The creature let out a roar that anyone would find deafening. The beast's hand came down to crush Yerim, but the girl remained calm. Yun, watching, saw the monster unleash a powerful strike against the ground. The big question was whether the girl had been hit. With so much dust, it was impossible to tell if she was injured, but the Minotaur realized too late. Her sword cut into his chest, and she was now behind him. Now the girl was slicing the monster, claiming that tonight's dinner would be bull's head soup. What a humiliation for the Minotaur. The divine spirits were perplexed by this cowhead soup, while Yuri was exasperated because she used such a cliched phrase. Yuri shouted that the Minotaur was way stronger than a kobold, and that its skin was much tougher. The strategy had to be to hit and run, and he kept shouting, but she didn't seem to hear any of the instructions. Nevertheless, she looked determined not to give up, and dodged the monster's attacks like a boss, while it just kept bleeding and bleeding. The beast fell to its knees, and Yerim landed in front of it with Yun watching the screen, terrified. The girl's sword began to glow with a beautiful green light, like a superpower. You got it, Kang? Rayram learned to use the Aura Sword, a skill that only the elite can master, allowing her to imbue her weapons with a kind of maximum power. Most collectors can't even learn this technique. They only know about it through stories. That monstrous girl had already developed the thing on her own, man. It was horrible. A real gem was finally found in her. It's insane. Rayram prepares her strike, and the monsters shout to each other as she lunges to slice the Minotaur in half. Fried. Sword descends vertically, severing the beast's horned head. A gigantic explosion follows the attack, and her ability was surreal, simply extraordinary. Cut in half, the monster lay thrown several meters away in the crater made by the Aura Sword technique. She observes her victory, holding the sword in one hand, proud, while wiping the sweat off. She notices a bunch of donations, especially from that hardcore XTER guy, must be a diehard fan, and Riam was like, wow, I can't believe it. He didn't have to do anything other than watch this massacre show. Their followers doubled. It was growing like a pimple in adolescence. He caught Yuri's attention, commenting that something looked strange. He asked what was going on. She replied that she had defeated the monster, but the domain was still active. Even the divine spirits were wondering, why hadn't it ended yet? Teleporting next to her, Yuri said that the domain indeed hadn't finished. She was upset with this answer, trying to understand everything with the spirits and with him. He explained that this labyrinth had never been completed, not even with the boss's death. The labyrinth doesn't end just because you defeated the Minotaur, got it? He remembered that in his past life many had won, but no one had ever managed to finish the labyrinth. No one discovered its rules. One day, an excavator cleared everything, and because of that, Yorian knew how to complete it. The condition was the exit. There, Riran said she could use the thread to go back, but it was the entrance, not the exit. Got it? Yoyum explained this, and she asked where the exit was, looking up. Yuyun announced that he was up there. Ryren asked if he was referring to the ceiling of the labyrinth, and he sent another, "Do you know the legend of Daedalus?" She replied that yes, he was the inventor who created the labyrinthine structure, but someone managed to escape, which wasn't supposed to happen. She asked if he was talking about Theseus, and Yuri confirmed it, because Daedalus taught him to use the ball of thread. King Minos, in revenge, imprisoned Daedalus and his son in the Cree labyrinth, but the inventor found a way to escape with Icarus. Showing a feather to Ryren, Yoo-hyun gave a hint on how to escape, and she got all excited about the discovery. There were several feathers scattered around, and she ran after them. She came back with a good amount, and Yoo-hyun got excited too. She threw the feathers in front of him and said it should be enough. Immediately, the feathers began to glow like a magical thing. As they fell to the ground, in the next second, a pair of wings appeared on her back. She had received Icarus's wings, which allowed her to fly once a day. Dude, how rare is this? She was still in shock with everything, but Yoo-hyun brought her back to reality, reminding her to use the wings to escape before getting lost again. Eren exclaimed that she had an incredible luck, a lot of pain, and congratulations on the achievement. They arrived around her house. She asked him what he thought of her now, because her self-esteem was sky high. Yoo-hyun praised her, but she wanted more. The girl was all happy, and still asked if she looked pretty now, but Yoru told her to stop, saying he didn't even seem interested. He couldn't resist, and said there was no way to pretend he wasn't affected by her beauty. Even the divine spirits couldn't handle it, which made Yoru all worked up, shouting that if she didn't stop, he would hit her. The girl started to cry, saying he was mean. Putting the silly conversation aside, he asked if she had ever been to the association. She said no, and he asked why. He said it was time for her to level up. She had to rise to earn more money. She got super excited, jumped out the window, and shouted that she would take care of it right now, but Yoo-hyun made her not waste the chance to fly. With something so trivial, he decided to go along to ensure that nothing went wrong with her at the association. Upon arrival, no one recognized her as a collector. Everyone who saw her was impressed by her aura. She didn't look like an ordinary collector, but rather a goddess of collections. She walked confidently around, beside the master of ceremonies, and people found her beautiful. Riorino learned that he shouldn't even consider using his wings there, and she, with a guilty look, said she never thought of doing that. At the counter, a staff member began to ask how he could help, and the master of ceremonies noticed he was being dominated by her aura. The master of ceremonies replied that they were there to collect their rewards for clearing a mental domain, while Riarim was only thinking about dinner. Whispers spread. People were incredulous, thinking that someone managed to complete a mental domain even after so many rumors. They were angry about the domain closures and wished for the downfall of the master of ceremonies, and Riarim was only blamed because they thought he was being selfish, unaware of whom they were dealing with. Curiously, the attendant asked if there was anyone else with them in this situation, and Riarim said no, she cleaned everything on her own. Many there disbelieved and even shouted that it was a lie, but the attendant asked what her class was, and Riarim replied it was class 9. The attendant became nervous and asked them to wait a moment while he called the person in charge, and they went to the waiting room. The whispers continued. People couldn't believe that a single person, especially from class 9, completed a mental domain. He looked at her, worried, but felt more at ease, noticing that she didn't seem to care. A giant, a man at least 2 meters tall and over 200 kilos of pure strength, called Will, Riarim, and Yaren Crooks. He leaned down to look at the girl and began to belittle her, as if she could never clear a domain on her own, trying to intimidate her. Riarim just watched, expressionless, not even bothering to respond to that guy. This made the thick-headed one even more upset. He thought that a class 9 was ignoring him. He tried to provoke her more to see if she would react, but there was no reaction from her. He just stood there, staring at him. The provocation backfired, and the guy started shouting at her for ignoring the Yoyum. He said he didn't want to talk to him. He turned to Yoyum and asked who he thought he was, just a manager, but Ryan said he wanted to be called her colleague. Even angrier, the guy redirected his aggression towards Yuri Yoo-hyun and told him to leave if he didn't want to get a beating, but Yuri Yoo-hyun simply remained calm, with his usual sarcastic smile. Then Yuri Yoo-hyun asked what would happen if he decided not to leave. Furious, the big guy charged at him and tried to punch Yuri Yoo-hyun in the face, but he warned the man to watch out for Yerim. However, ignoring everything, the man continued to try to attack Yuyo. At that moment, a much thinner but stronger arm grabbed his, changing targets. The man asked what to do now, let go of his arm or face the consequences. Little did he know that the consequences would only be for him. Everyone was in shock when Riarim literally threw him to the ground with such force that everything broke. The guy was unconscious, people, and the girl just watched, crossing her legs. He had even told the guy to be careful, but now Rayrin had lost her patience. It's cool to see how she has two sides, right? Looking at her, he couldn't believe he had been defeated by a girl. What a macho guy, man! And Rayrin finishes him off. The guy tried to get up quickly and attack again, but she calmly just watched. In the next minute, people panicked when she took him down again with an arm lock. Everyone in shock. A Class 7 fighter got beat up by a Class 9. The guy didn't give up. He was still conscious. After taking a beating twice, he was furious. He then realized it was the manager's setup, got up, and started shouting and cursing at Yoyun. He unleashed an aura, and Harina noticed. Yoyun realized the guy had martial skills. He wasn't that weak after all. The ground began to give way, and the ordinary people panicked, begging for them to stop the mess. But the guy ignored it and yelled even louder at Yohyun, threatening to cancel his life subscription. Ryan pressed him harder against the floor, leaving him confused and not knowing how everything had happened. Ryan noticed she had mastered the heavy body technique. She was performing better than he expected. Then suddenly, she started crying for some reason, leaving even Yohyun confused. People were impressed by her strength. Someone shouted asking what was going on, and two guys in suits arrived to try to stop the fight. Yohyun realized they took their time to intervene, definitely an order from someone. The next guy showed up saying they looked ridiculous, causing a commotion. He seemed like the boss. Yohyun asked if he was in charge and the guy confirmed. Then he asked who he was, and he said he was a colleague of Rierim. She was in the middle of the mess, but hadn't started the fuss. Actually, it was just a clash of opinions. The other guy started messing around, so the girl had no choice but to stop him. She acted in self-defense, you know? The man didn't seem fully convinced, but Yohyun explained that she didn't have a scratch. Yohyun insisted they should be thankful for the elimination of the threat. The boss agreed. Everyone there was sure it was the other guy who started the trouble. The man smiled and apologized, but getting back to the point, Yuri asked when the person responsible for the money would arrive. The master of ceremonies was behind the old man who said they were having payment issues and called Rierim. They went to the old man's office while people were still praising her strength. Yohyun realized her first public appearance was great for his marketing, but the real trouble was about to unfold now. The master of ceremonies wanted to extract everything from the association. While reading the old man's book, he realized that his potential didn't compare to Rierim's, but he wasn't stupid. During the fight, he wanted to pressure Laos, but changed his mind when he saw things were going to go south. Opening the door to his office, he invited them in. Yohyun knew the old man had a history and couldn't mess up. The old man introduced himself as Choi Do-young Mo. He may seem insignificant, but he is the one in charge there. Yohyun introduced himself and made the house honors for Rierim. The old man commented that he heard the two had cleaned up the domains. But Yohyun corrected him, saying it was just the Raibarim. Everyone was left speechless, but she showcased her skills right away, so that was it. The old man agreed, but questioned what they wanted from the association. Seriously speaking, Yohyun said they just wanted what was fair for cleaning the domain. The association wanted to brush it aside and not reward them. The old man smiled and explained that the decision to distribute rewards was all his, but Yohyun felt there was more at stake, and went straight to the point. He was already aware that the association didn't want to reward them. The old man asked him to stop being evasive and asked about Yuri. Then he got real, questioning whether they didn't intend to give the proper reward. This left the old man flustered, and Yuri started to press Lopi for answers. The government preferred to leave the domains as they were, with no new ones emerging. Smiling, the old man admitted they hit where it hurt. So, to summarize, the government and the collectors didn't want more work. Got it? To be straightforward, Choi Do-hyung said they doused water on a fight that was naturally accepted. Ryo proposed the idea that domains need to tell stories to the divine spirits, but humanity is breaking this rule. The old man disagreed, saying that creating a new domain requires money and people to analyze it. It was a wealthy situation for everyone in terms of money and lives, so his position was a matter of prevention. Ryo commented that the excuses seemed almost incredible, but the old man shot back that they were just avoiding unnecessary deaths. He questioned whether the two would take responsibility for the lost lives, but the master of ceremonies stated that they were just collectors and owed no such responsibility. Deep down, life or death depended on each one's skills and destinies. Filled with anger, the old man warned them to be careful with what they said, and Ryo stood firm that he would not take responsibility, while the old man shouted that lives were at stake and that one could not be so irresponsible. Ryo remembered his past life and how the association's decision destroyed so many lives, and Ryo said that deaths in new domains were a tragedy, but keeping everything as it was. It wasn't going to solve the real problem. The collectors seemed quite weak, acting like cowards to ensure their safety, fleeing from any real challenge. The old man questioned whether he thought he was different, and he confirmed that yes, he was. They didn't hide and didn't stop others, that's why they were better, and that's why they had to act to close the domains. Choi from Yuhyun Jungmo asked if he thought they should be rewarded for that. Meanwhile, Hiram remained silent. Up to that moment, the old man pondered that it didn't matter what was said. This was how society functioned, and that wasn't going to change. He understood that. Smiling, the host asked, did the old man not fear the consequences of that choice? But the old man shot back that it was just two people ignoring that. The old man could see how it looked. But what if others decided to act too? What others? Sho and Doi asked. Immediately, the old man paled. Several windows of the higher spirits appeared. The divine spirits were clearly displeased. While the old man was still recovering from the surprise of the spirits' comment screens, Riem took the opportunity to introduce himself. He was Kangeiro Riem, storyteller of the Celestial Body Inc. The host was live, and everyone was watching at that moment. Sho and Doyoung Jungmo thought he was only dealing with some collector's business manager, but the guy proved to be so humble. The way he took care of the collector and handled negotiations was quite different from the normal cashiers who only wanted to know about themselves. The old man was in a panic, trying to decipher exactly when he had planned all of this, but that was not the correct assumption. The person in front of him seemed to act as if he already knew the entire situation. Given the circumstances, any excuse would be useless to change the situation. Sweat dripped onto the table. If the association's image got tarnished and bad rumors started circulating, it would be a huge problem. Desperate, the old man still believed he had to find a way to escape. It had to be a masterful exit, he thought, trying to find a solution, but it was impossible for it to be checkmate. Looking at the master of ceremonies, he noticed that the kid was completely calm about all of this. Finally, the old man understood that he was just a pawn in his hands. He had been defeated for a long time. Trembling, he tried to get up from the sofa, but his legs wouldn't obey, making him sit down again. And Rai Rinhyo was all smiles while Ian watched in silence. Ian remarked that he was happy to see the old man still had good instincts. At that moment, he had already won. After all, he didn't think the old man could have been even more reckless, giving more space for his advantages. If he had refused to back down, it would have resulted in his downfall, and Hyun could have gained even more. The old man, who probably gained another 30 or 50% of gray hair from this conversation, asked what they wanted. The old man finally yielded and agreed to reward them for clearing the domain, leaving Yuri radiant and happy with the outcome. Yuri asked the spectators what they thought of the deal, and everyone approved. Some still thought they should destroy the old man and the association, but that was just a minority. In any case, he was determined to keep his fans happy and secure the best outcome. Even so, the donations kept coming. Even though it wasn't a heroic story, it brought good rewards. Next to Rai Rinhyo, he awaited the old man to make the deposit by the end of the day, and the old man assured him that he would. But there was still one thing. Upon hearing this, Choi from Youngmo became alarmed, seeing the old man's attention. Yoryung reassured him, saying he just wanted him to find someone. The old man asked who that person was and wanted to know if there was anyone named Choi from Yun among the collectors. But the old man had never heard that name. He was indeed a collector, and Yun said maybe yes, maybe no. He still didn't know the details, but the kid should be about 18 or 19 years old, and he gave a description. In any case, he would be grateful if the old man could investigate the kid, because he wanted some information. The old man asked if he knew anything else about the kid, and Rihun commented that he was extremely arrogant, leaving Choi from Yun confused. The day was clear, while Rairinho breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he was going to faint from nerves. Rairinho praised him for keeping calm, and she said she was afraid of messing everything up, but it was exhausting. Rios commented that she had to get used to it because there would be more meetings like this. She pleaded to go back to doing what she liked, like staying away from this stuff and eating cake, but Rios said that was not going to happen, explaining that many had commented about her today. She was very charming, gaining fame. Everyone was drooling, probably because she was beautiful. Impressive how she showed it. At the association, that made her blush. He continued saying that in the future she would be able to enjoy all the fame and money that would come. What happened today made her happy and excited. She wanted to go out to give him something, but he held her by the shoulder and warned that there were still more things to do. She asked what it was, but before he could answer, something caught his attention. Aaron asked if everything was all right, and he said he had an urgent matter to resolve and that he would be back soon. She was confused, but without giving much detail, he used his genesis to teleport, promising to return soon. She was left alone while Yu-hyun was teleported to a height in the city. Someone appeared behind him and Juwon asked who it was, but the man didn't answer. Yu-hyun turned around and questioned who he was, and the man just scoffed, calling him a rude kid. The man seemed to have little respect for Yu-hyun, but said someone wanted to meet Lu. He came personally to offer the honor of joining his pentagram division. Without further ado, Yu-hyun asked again who the guy was, and he introduced himself as Jim Pang. He asked what he wanted with him, which irritated Jim Pang, complaining that he was very arrogant for a newbie. And Rio said he had a name which was Kang Hyun, surprising the man. How could he already have the name? He spent 3 weeks getting his and the kid already had his as soon as he entered, acting all high and mighty. Yu-hyun didn't care at all about Jim Pang's invitation to the division and quickly said no. Furious, Jim Pang was left confused and had to ask again, just to hear that the kid really didn't want to join the association. He tried to use his authority, but Yu-hyun was unfazed. After all, it seemed like he had no chance to impose anything. Confusion took over Jim Pang, and Ryan quickly remembered that Yo-hyun hadn't been in any division until then. Curious, Jim Pung couldn't believe Yo-hyun's audacity, but he didn't let it slide and put him in his place, making it clear that he was nobody to join him. Jim Pung needed to have a decent track record, which, let's face it, wasn't the case for him. Jim Pung wondered how Yo-hyun knew this, but he didn't respond while Juwon said the intimidation attempt was a fiasco. Then, Urium sent the guy back to his division, making it clear that he would never join it, and asked him to pass the message to the boss as well. If someone wanted him there, they needed to send more competent people. He was so nervous that he just stuttered, but Yo-hyun ordered him to leave. He teleported away, but not before leaving a veiled threat for Yo-hyun. Back at the spot where Aaron was, he only commented that the place was a bunch of weirdos. Aaron noticed that he returned quickly and wanted to know what happened, but he changed the subject. It was time to finally find her a real manager. Yu-hyun and Riaran were in front of a building called Discamenesment, but it wasn't the right place yet. From what he remembered, it should be around there, and he started to look around. Finally, he found what he wanted. Riaram seemed surprised since the place didn't look well maintained, but Uriam was sure it was indeed the spot. He knocked on the door and asked if anyone was inside. Hearing a call to wait, after a little while the door opened and a leg in tights appeared. Then, a woman appeared and asked what they were doing there. She caught Yu-hyun's attention, but the guy didn't respond. Deep down, he knew it was too late to fix things between them. Memories of the past came rushing back. He was running to a desolate place, visibly terrified, when he heard a voice. The voice told him to stay away from someone like her, who had lost her humanity. He saw the woman being held by the neck, with blood trickling from her mouth. While the voice ended with a tempting proposal, another voice appeared. People, and the woman shouted hello. And then, the yo-yo finally returned to reality. He apologized, noticing that her hair was different, but remembered that she was the same one he had met before. The woman introduced herself as Baek Surim, manager of Becca Management. She excitedly asked if they were there to join the company, and Rin confirmed that they were. Surim thought Rin was amazing, happy that a collector wanted to join her business. Rio wouldn't let the charade continue, saying that he didn't need it, and she quickly disassembled her facade. Surim realized that what she thought was so cool was really just a silly girl. She saw that Rin was a collector, but he, Yu-hyun, asked if she wanted to guess. She argued that if he were a collector, he wouldn't be there looking for the manager. She ventured that he could be a cashier, surprising Yuri, who thought even the old man hadn't guessed right at first. Seeing Yu-hyun's face, she went on to explain that accountants have a different pace in the best situations. At that moment, Baek Surim was just a small CEO, but her story was still about to turn. During the apocalypses of their past lives, she showed that she was good at leading a bunch of people. She apologized if she was wrong, but heard a right from Yu-hyun and felt happy about it. The two started to bond and couldn't stop smiling. One of them wanted to know how they met, and while Rin spoke about their first meeting, Yu-hyun looked at her curiously. He interrupted and asked if they could see the contract, making Surim even more excited. Then Yuri said he wanted to discuss the conditions. Rin praised Surim, but Yuri made it clear that the contract was between the two of them. After a few moments, they were already vaccinated, and Rin wanted to know what a manager normally does. Yu-hyun noticed that they were getting along well, and Surim explained that the priority was to support the collectors by organizing schedules and tasks. The collector thought it was a lot and asked if she had a team, but the answer was that she did everything by herself. Frustrated, he said he should be driving a collector, but in reality he didn't have enough money for that, even though he had a driver's license. Surin revealed that she also knew how to operate an excavator and weld. Rin asked why, and she replied that it was her plan B, but she was committed to giving her best. He, standing, told Riaran that she didn't need her yet, since she had to establish her name. But Surin asked if she could help with anything. He thought they would need her soon, so he let her enjoy the break before the race. As they left, Yorion said he would get in touch at the right moment, and she agreed. wishing him good luck. Yo-yoon hesitated and asked if Rian had any dreams, which confused her. He remembered that in the past life, he had asked what she would do when it was all over, but she hadn't had such a good life before. If she ever thought about something like that, she said she just wanted to make a lot of money. Yo-yoon realized that this was the Ryan he had known during the apocalypse. The answer made Yoo-hyun understand why she and Haran got along so well. They thought alike. Haran picked up on the connection and remarked how it felt like they had known each other much longer, laughing at how strange it was. In the past life, Rio recalled that they had met before, so it wasn't that bizarre after all. Yes, singing to another office full of messy paperwork where someone was shouting and calling the other a bastard. It was a supposed superior furious with Yo-yoon determined to teach him a lesson. Looking at the system screen, he remembered that Rio was protected by the Genesis system, but he had an idea. After thinking for a moment, he had a breakthrough, realizing there was indeed a way to reach out. Soon, a week passed, and some people seemed to be chatting somewhere. It looked like the Collectors Association. Raerim and Yo-hyun arrived, and everyone noticed, whispering about how she had already cleared 4 domains. They were getting ready for another domain with several other people organizing to go too. She asked if it was that dangerous, and yes, it was. This domain is quite peculiar. You can only enter once every 3 months, and if you fail, that's it, man. She questions whether he really chose such a dangerous place, and Yoo-hyun responds, well, didn't she get into this mess to succeed? She confirms that she did, and thus they discuss that they have the same goal, even if taking different paths. He also wants a high position, no matter the reason. For them, that's what matters because, man, mediocre reasons aren't the point. You have to go all in. If she wants something, she has to chase it, breaking bones and shedding blood if necessary. And she is confident she can do it. Before Hiram can respond, someone shouts that the domain is opening, and an intense light begins. The master of ceremonies, who isn't in the mood to hear answers right now, knows that one day she will need it. On the other side of the portal, we see the collectors on top of a wall watching the cavalry army approach. This domain is a large-scale war, and Raerim wonders if they will have to fight too. She even thinks it's fun while Yoo-hyun watches her from afar. One of the armies shouts to hold everything they can, while the soldiers shout, attack. This is an Ottoman war, but the problem is that this empire has already fought 5 wars with different countries. The defending side shouts that they cannot lose no matter what, or the friendly enemies will breach the walls. Got it? Many soldiers are in the fight, and the massacre is guaranteed. Yoo-hyun remembers the past, where he saw people running, terrified, desperate not to be eliminated. In the past, he just stood there, unable to act. He closes his eyes, trying to return to the present, without getting lost in those memories. Refocused, he promises himself that he won't let that happen again. We go back a week in time, to the headquarters of Celestial Body Inc. The accountant who hired him is explaining how the ceremony will take place to the new accountants. The crowd is a bit confused. They are still small white orbs, and the ceremony will take place along with the divine spirits. Riam, in now human form, listens attentively to the instructions of an accountant who looks like a servant. He says they won't find the spirits because they are in a great hall with food, while the orbs enjoy themselves, and Rio is standing in a corner holding a glass of wine. He still wonders how he got into this company, the 3rd largest accounting firm in the universe. It's astonishing that he is there today. Looking out the window, you can see a giant island floating in space like a metropolis. Someone asks the master of ceremonies what he is doing there. Then, Rio takes a look, and a seer with an orb asks why he is not enjoying the party, while the host is more interested in his horns. Rio says he is not in the mood, which irritates the other seer, telling him to stop being conceited. The host argues that he doesn't think he is better than anyone, but the orb interrupts, saying that he will soon surpass everyone. Then he exits the scene. He found the horned orb curious, but then a group enters, and several different figures appear together. They are from another sector of Celestial Body Inc. and came to meet the newbies. They can enjoy the party in their shadow. Yoo-hyun realizes he is there to evaluate the new accountants on their first missions and to try to recruit. The plan is simple. Grab the best and take them to their sectors. That place turned into a battlefield of recruiters. Thinking about how boring it would be to get caught in the confusion, Yoo-hyun decides to leave, but unfortunately, he has been located by a superior. As a reincarnated newbie, a group of recruiters surrounded him, making Yao Yao nervous. He tries to thank them for all the attention while only thinking about how to get out of there. Suddenly, someone appears who doesn't seem interested in him. This gives him an idea. He moves away from the recruiters and starts talking to the strange figure, saying that he should have mentioned he was there. The man looks confused, but Yoo-hyun continues his show, hoping he collaborates. The guy seems to understand the move and plays along, making Rio happy. He starts leading the guy out, saying they could chat somewhere else, and the recruiters think he has already been recruited. They don't recognize the man man, but that doesn't matter. Outside, the master of ceremonies thanks him for helping him escape. The shadowy grandmother shows no reaction. Yuri, without waiting for a response, turns his back and says he has to go, probably busy with other things. Before disappearing, the man comments that it was very fun. Yuri, a partner, immediately says he made sure no one could see him. Then, since Yorian saw through his disguise, a nervous Yorian asks what he meant by that. Looking back, we see that the guy's environment is sinister with a giant green snake. It's serious business, and Riem realizes that the guy is a danger. Without showing fear, he asks what the guy wants, and the man says he's just curious. He doesn't intend to hurt him, at least, not yet. He asks if Riem will answer the question about how he saw him. The kid replies that actually, he didn't see the guy. He just noticed a floating book among the counters. Focusing on the dark book in the air, Yorin was able to see who the owner was. Ryum explains that this is his ability, while black smoke floats near him, almost suffocating him. The man becomes curious, and Yu Yun explains that he has a good eye and sees what others can't, including him. At first, he was unsure, but when he looked around and saw that no one else noticed the guy, he said he couldn't deny it. Ryum confirms that yes, he is different from the other counters. The man laughs, claiming he noticed that for sure. The master of ceremonies apologizes for speaking so suddenly, and the man asks if that's all. Clapping in a frightening way, he says it was their destiny to meet and makes a bet. He asks what the bet is, and the man replies that it's simple. He has to guess who he is. If he guesses right, he would earn a reward. The master of ceremonies asks what happens if he gets it wrong, and the man replies that he will have to take responsibility for interrupting his entertainment by taking the book off his head. He accepts the challenge even knowing the guy is confident he will be wrong. The master of ceremonies tries to open the book, but can't, getting nervous. This just shows that the man is so strong that even he can't read the book. He cannot act beyond his level, but he remembers what the counter said. The divine spirits would also be there. He figures that the divine spirits are around, but not in the same room as the counters. Then it was already time for him to think the guy in front of him was one of the five great divine forces: the sky of Eden, the S of Asgard, the guided one of Hermopolis, and the Olympic pantheon. And then there was Pandemonium, with its heavy stories and that sinister air. The book with a three-headed serpent left no doubts. Yu-hyun realized that the crazy one is the serpent that corrupts the red dragon and sends those closest to the light, letting them fall into darkness. Before him stood none other than the divine spirit of the first generation of Pandemonium, Satan. He lets out a dry laugh and responds that Yu-hyun guessed who he was. He is surprised that the boy discovered it and begins to applaud. Yu-hyun asks if he will be spared now, and Satan jokes that it was kind of a joke, to be honest. Yu-hyun surprised him. It would make more sense to punish rather than to reprimand the boy. The kid doesn't believe it. He imagined that the monster would have punished him in some way if he had lost. He was the kind of guy who keeps his word. Satan confirms this as, well, but since he lost, he needs to keep his promise. He thinks for a moment, and an idea comes to him. He knew that the master of ceremonies was about to create his library, and the master confirms it. Then, he makes the proposal. He wants to sponsor the library and asks what the master thinks. Yu-hyun begins to consider the possibility. Getting support from such a powerful spirit is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Satan extends his hand to shake Yu-hyun's, who realizes this could be unique. If falls. He shook that hand. There would be no turning back, but he already seems determined and extends his hand back. Still, a nervousness takes hold. Is it really a good idea to enter into this partnership? At that moment, he makes his decision and apologizes, saying he needs to decline the offer. The divine spirit does not seem satisfied, but asks why he is refusing. Yu-hyun says that the sponsorship would help the library, but he would lose his freedom, fearing the reaction from the folks of Eden. Satan understands the concern, but questions whether there wouldn't be benefits. Yu-hyun responds that it is not enough, and this piques Satan's curiosity. He mentions that the spirits of Pandemonium are fierce, especially Satan. He was one of the 7 executives, making Yuri want to get involved, but there was more. If he formed a partnership, he would only tell stories from Pandemonium. The authority of the library would be in Satan's hands, and Yuri had realized the infinite options of stories for his library. The path he wanted to follow was different. That was the reason for his refusal to Satan. He wanted to carve his own path, and the river expresses the hope that he understands. But Satan lets out a disdainful sigh, cutting Yu-hyun off mid-sentence. Soon after, the divine spirit starts laughing, finding it incredible that he has ambitions greater than those of Pandemonium. The boy gets nervous. trying to explain that it wasn't that kind of vibe, but Satan tells him to relax. He compliments him, saying that he was right to accept the sponsorship. The library belongs to Satan, and Yuri would have to give up his own potential. Satan is impressed by the refusal of the easy path, and it seems foolishness, but it is a foolishness that captures his attention. He warns that he would end the conversation there. He's not the type to force anyone into anything. Hearing a question if that means he gave up, Satan replies that he's not sure. It seems that made him even more anxious to force the boy to stay. The boy was like, now what? It was as if the kid were a toy in Satan's hands, who makes his offer again, and the river firmly says he wanted the spirit's donations, but not like this. Satan warns that he is arrogant, but will not punish him for it. Upon leaving, he comments that it wouldn't be right to let the boy go empty-handed after winning the bet. Since he came out victorious, a gift would come soon. He was glad to have met Yuri that day. Before disappearing completely, he said he would step into Yuri's library soon. The river was still in shock with everything, watching his system window, wondering how much time had passed. He still needed to escape from the others. Upon exiting, he finds a library inside the company, something he never expected to find. The place seemed quiet, with no one behind him, so he thought about passing the time reading a book until someone appears. Talking about how strange it was to see a guest there, Yoo-hyun turns to see who was speaking. A bright light shines, leaving Yoo-hyun even more confused. Up close, he sees a golden book about a brilliant and handsome man. It was a large book, and he was impressed by the valuable stories written in it. They must be, the old man asks who he is, since guests usually don't appear around here. Rio says he's a new employee, impressing the old man. He laughs, saying it was rude. It's just that the boy's appearance is so complete that he didn't imagine he was a novice. Then he recognizes who the master of ceremonies is. The boy asks what the old man is doing there, and he says he's the manager of the place. Rio asks if he works there, but the old man denies it. No one manages that. He just offered to help. Impressed, Yuri wonders why someone with an incredible book is retired. He must have had a respectable past. The old man asks if it's okay for him to be there during the initiation ceremony. The master says he was bothered and then ran away. The old man laughs and says the same thing happened to him in his youth. This must indicate that the master of ceremonies doesn't yet belong to any department, and Rio confirms that he plans to keep it that way. The old man asks if choosing such a difficult path isn't scary. The boy admits he would be lying if he said he wasn't afraid, but he continues with a purpose. This piques the old man's interest. He says that Yoo-hyun also has a desire. Yoo-hyun is confused, and the old man starts to explain. Counters don't just appear, they have some level of skill. However, they are like shallow boards in relation to desires. Most just follow what the system and the company dictate. This is a fundamentally wrong path because it's just following the herd. Unfortunately, most counters don't have that desire. A counter who isn't swayed like Yoo-hyun is super rare. Then, the old man had the brilliant idea to show something fun to Yoo-hyun and told him to follow. He was stunned when he saw they were in a corridor packed with stories that changed the world. It was like the Hall of Fame of Celestial Body Inc. You get it? There, each story held the life of several people. It's a spectacle. Yo-yum was having a blast, but suddenly the old man said they had reached the end and the corridor wasn't that long after all. Yo-yum was like, what? Then the old man told him that 30 years ago, life had hit a total freeze. He brought the river to remind of this place that was kind of hidden in the closet. So much brilliant and forgotten history. If it disappeared, it would be terribly sad knowing that no one else would know that place. And that's why Yo-yum was there, with him, because he was the only storyteller who wanted to see that place, even though it was all worn out. Yoo-hyun was admiring everything, missing nothing, while the other storytellers were only thinking about scoring points and telling the same old stories. Those stories belonged to another generation, but he believed that one day such brilliant stories could be told again. These stories are essential for the world, and Yoo-hyun thought that if he managed that challenge, he would also be in the Hall of Fame. He wanted to be someone like that. Yorian called out to the old man and thanked him for the incredible experience. The ceremony was almost over. There were only 10 seconds left before returning to the land. He asked the old man's name. The old man took a moment to respond, but said that if Yoo-hyun came back to visit, he would say his name with a smile. The boy nodded, already being taken back, thinking he would see the old man again soon. And so the ceremony came to an end. A voice shouted Rarem's name, pulling her out of her trance. She was nervous at that moment of war, and Ree asked if she could hear him. She confirmed she could, so he asked her to keep. Hiron asked if that was a war zone, and Rio confirmed. It was the siege that ended the medieval era, the famous siege of Constantinople. The Ottomans had ended the Roman Empire in that war. Now everything made sense. Hiron asked if they were on the Roman side in the war, and Rio confirmed. He knew it was that place that awakened the skills, making her the Empress of the Sword. That event was crucial for her. Nervous, Rerum asked if Yoan was seeing everything, and he noticed her voice trembling. He said yes, and she wanted to know if they were going to win. The presenter explained that it was impossible. Not even 500 collectors would win, as they were facing an army of 7,000 against 150,000. He was also worried, as those 150,000 were not just the attacking forces. If the support troops were counted, there were over 300,000. Curious, he asked why so many collectors were there, even with such low odds, and Rio explained that over 2,000 divine spirits were watching that spectacle. It was a unique opportunity to show the spirits the potential of the collectors, and it was certain that spirits and other libraries were also paying attention. This made Rien feel more relieved and excited. Everyone there wanted to showcase their libraries, as otherwise they would lose views. Many thought it was just to display to the spirits, but the goal was to clear that domain. In his past life, Yoyum remembered that Rien had also failed to clear that place. He knew it was dangerous, but he said they would simply try. He wanted to see if the current Rien could clear that domain, since she was now stronger. If there was the slightest chance of success, the attempt was already worth it. A couple approached Rien, asking if she intended to act alone. The guy looked like an archer version of Sharoma, and the girl reminded him of Nicole. They suggested partnering with Rien. Turning to her without answering, the boy asked if she was going to ignore them. Nicole told them to leave Rien alone, saying she had become very arrogant after clearing some domains by herself. Rien had a clear mind. She realized they only wanted to take advantage of her. Someone shouted to the crowd of collectors, "Welcome, mercenaries!" and everyone turned to the voice. An old man in golden armor was there, commanding the defenses. The man introduced himself as Constantine, Emperor of Rome. He thanked everyone for helping with the defense. While the man spoke, Hiram's thoughts wandered. Even knowing it was all an illusion, it felt incredibly real. After the speech, Constantine said everything was ready and the siege of Constantinople would finally begin. The system announced that they only had one chance to complete that domain and that they needed to defend the fortress and win. Humans were shouting that it was time to end the war. The two who tried to form a team with Raynor took the lead, claiming it would be a piece of cake, and charged forward with a spell from the boy. The ground exploded, sending several Ottoman soldiers flying. He took advantage of all the chaos, confident, and provoked the soldiers to attack him. None of the Ottomans seemed strong enough to handle them, which only fueled their arrogance. "Hey," I laughed. One watched the scene somewhat suspiciously, sensing that something was off. The boy kept casting powerful spells while the girl swiftly took down several soldiers. After a few minutes, with sweat dripping down, he looked ahead and was horrified. There were still a ton of soldiers left. The other collectors were already worn out, and the divine spirits were starting to lose interest in the battle. This left the collectors in despair, and Raynor realized they were tired because they had spent everything right at the start. But on the other hand, he saw that Raynor was still in the fight, taking down soldiers non-stop. The bad one wanted to check the other libraries. When he entered the collector's room, he saw several of them in a panic. One of them even complained about how their collector was useless, especially for not following the advice of not spending everything at the beginning. The divine spirits began to make negative comments, and the counters fell into deep despair while the Sword Empress was wreaking havoc in the battle. The people from the other libraries were already starting to migrate to Yuri's. Obviously, the spirits clustered in his library, and the number of spectators reached an impressive 512. One counter, thinking he was the king of the hill, came over to Yuri, all focused, and got angry, believing that Yuri was feeling himself just because he was doing well. Then he yelled at the collector, who was already exhausted, telling him to get back to the IQ, fight quickly, or they would lose spectators. A heavy argument started between the two. Raynor, sensing that the tide of war was changing, realized that everyone was more tired than a stray dog. Even Irin, who had been holding up until then, was starting to unravel, and that was trouble. He started wondering what her choice would be when things got tough. Making the giant explosion or chasing after the girl is what Heron screams as the castle walls collapse, like terrible news. She turns around, shocked, not understanding how this happened. They used an orbital cannon, a thing that only the Ottoman army has. You know it's no joke, right? Now they're coming in full force without mercy. The collectors are panicking, not knowing what to do, starting to be afraid for their lives. He looks at the mercenaries, begging for help. Without that help, victory will be harder than making the bed in the morning. Rerum agrees and says they need to protect the Roman people hiding in the castle. They can't afford to hesitate. She turns to give orders, but most are already giving up and trying to leave before things get worse. The girl still tries to convince a few to stay, but the decision has already been made. They're going to run. One of them shouts at Rerum that the place isn't safe and that the plan was to resist and then bail. Aaron disagrees and says that abandoning the soldiers is a ridiculous idea. Curious, the collector shouts that those people are just illusions. Why care? He doesn't even care about those people, thinks they don't even exist. But if she wants to stay and die, let her die alone. This leaves Rerum surprised, wondering if those collectors are truly that cowardly. She remembers that everyone there wants to be a collector for recognition, so why are they giving up? And Heron stays behind, watching the others leave through the portal. The two armies are facing off right behind her while she freezes, thinking about what to do. With the introduction of Constantine and the request to the mercenaries, all the collectors are already giving up because of the invading Ottoman army. Everyone is fleeing because they're afraid of losing their lives, and Constantine thinks he always knew they would leave the others to die. The emperor looks at the desolation of the battlefield, aware that this routine has been repeating for a long time. He knows he can't stop fighting, so he moves to the front line with his army. This world is already decided, even if it isn't a real being. How can he watch his people be slaughtered and do nothing? If destiny is foretold, he will fight to overcome it. No matter how many times one of the Ottoman soldiers sees the emperor and yells for the crowd to attack and take his head for the sultan. Then, Constantine realizes that his time has come again. Two soldiers are charging at him, and before he realizes it, something flashes across his face and causes a massive explosion right in front of him. He notices that it was Hiren who caused all that destruction. She stands in front of him, with her back turned, looking as if she's ready for a fight. She remains silent, almost like a mystery. The soldiers remember that she was one of the mercenaries and ask if she isn't Joan of Arc. Constantine wonders why she didn't flee like the others, considering this war is already a lost cause. She advances and responds that she still needs to fight to not see him die in vain. Constantine is dumbfounded by this. The mercenaries have come down hard, and Hiren wonders if he remembers them. The old man recounts that he was raised there. After all, perhaps his true self has long gone to space. Hiren says it's not like that. He is not just that. She sees them as humans, and therefore decided to help. That's why she stayed. Constantine, incredulous, asks if she really thinks that, and she asks if he doesn't want her to see them that way. As the old man feels his heart racing, he is left speechless. What he feels is not hate or sadness. Smiling, the old man says that yes, he wants her to see them as humans. What he feels is joy. He can't not appreciate that she sees them as real people with value. Soon after, the Ottoman army starts to charge, shouting that they found a gap. Constantine asks her to hold her ground alone for a while. After they defend, the enemy will suffer, and Hiren confirms. The emperor yells for his people to take position. This gave me butterflies. With a big smile, Hiren receives that compliment from Constantine, and the battle resumes. Urim is there, watching the fight, and notices that Hiren's book is becoming silvery. She is more connected to the past, but he starts to hope that she overcomes this. That story is reaching 800 people, and most of the divine spirits are bystanding in awe as she unlocks her potential. An Ottoman appears in front of her, shouting for her to go to hell as the sword comes down hard. The girl dodges the blow just in time and counterattacks, taking the soldier down. Immediately, a true massacre ensues at her hands, and I, here writing the script, am like, wow. One of the rivals, but the master of ceremonies, asks why he hasn't sent this colleague away yet, as she is tiring out. They keep being dramatic until the master comes down on them, telling them to shut up because they're, just idiots. The tiger-headed man is shocked by the lack of respect and asks what the master actually said. The master retorts, asking if he is deaf and needs it repeated. They just tuck their tails and sidle off. They were only trying to steal something from his library, or simply wished he were dead. The master, even angrier, asks how they have the audacity to belittle someone who is not a coward. The tiger man, nervous, can't respond and tells him to be quiet and know his place. But it's clear that the river is nervously flowing, while the little roar continues this tireless fight until the last line of defense falls. The Roman soldiers, now in total panic, scream that their last barrier has collapsed. The despair was palpable, and doubt took hold. Then the Rearim appears, quick as lightning, standing in front of them like an insurmountable wall. The guys look at her with almost religious admiration. Determined, she realizes she needs to stop that army, even if it's just one of them. Those doubts begin to hammer in her head. Why doesn't she give up? Why does she stand firm if death is knocking at the door? Wouldn't it be easier to run away? With no answer, she feels that giving up and fleeing would mean losing something very precious. A precise arrow hits her chest, staining a body already soaked in blood. The Romans' screams echo as they advance furiously against the Ottomans. Their fury intensified because someone had managed to bring the little roar to her knees. Trying to recover, the defense, now revitalized, launches a unison attack against the Ottomans. A Roman collapses right in front of her, wide-eyed. But now lifeless, she panics, thinking that she really believed they could win this. Desperate, she proudly recalls how she stayed behind while everyone else ran. But in the end, it all went to hell. Tears stream down as Ryan questions what to do now. Her attitude leaves the divine spirit super frustrated. Opinions on social media are divided. Some think she was brave, others attack her for wanting to give up. The criticism is still low compared to other situations, but it leaves Yoo Hyun in shock. He thinks about blocking those who are criticizing, but hesitates. If he does nothing, his library could be ruined. He eyes the messages flooding the live stream. Curious, he looks up and realizes something strange has happened. All the divine spirits suddenly fall silent. Looking to the side, he wonders what happened to silence the crowd. Then he sees the broadcast and gets startled. That sinister smile from the depths of the abyss has just entered the library. Satan asks why the vibe in the library has become so tense. Yoo Hyun replies that the crowd is bothered by his presence. Yoo Hyun's courage shocks the spirits, but he casually states that Satan has arrived late. Now things are starting to get interesting. Back to his confidence, Yoo Hyun declares that from now on, things are going to get even crazier. Satan sends 1,000 points and hopes the entertainment lives up to it. The next moment, Yoo Hyun is pulled into the domain. He appears right in front of Hiram, who is on kite, her knees gripping her sword. She, already out of strength, says it's over, forcing herself to look up, finally finding Yoo Hyun's eyes. He warns her that she can give up right now, or she'll die here. He compliments her, saying she really tried, but some things are simply beyond control. She agrees, even with that voice of someone who has already accepted defeat, acknowledging that some things truly cannot be changed. The master of ceremonies asks if she will give up, and her answer is a scream of no. Frustrated, she knows she is being stubborn. She understands that there are limits she cannot surpass. At that moment, in tears, she asks why he is saying something so cruel, why he can't just give up. Everyone had already told her that she was worthless, that she should quit this life of a collector. She even thought about what they said, but Yoo Hyun was different. He always saw her as someone talented, capable of things that her peers couldn't do, and that's what made her evolve. That's why she was there. Erin realizes that this is exactly what she wanted to happen. Holding back her tears, Eggy, determined not to give up anymore, tired of running, and Yuna warns that even so, she is going to die. And she replies that yes, she is well aware of that. However, she doesn't want to abandon this fight. She apologizes, admitting that she is too stupid to give up and too stubborn at such a critical moment. The master of ceremonies understands, but you must have seen what he did for her. An Ottoman soldier appears, shouting for her to die, raises his sword and calls her a witch. With her body trembling, she thinks she needs to block the attack, but she simply doesn't have the strength to move. And this was the end of the line for her. She is already apologizing to Yori Hyun, and Arierim realizes that this is not a good sign. He steps in front of her. At that moment, he can intervene in the battles. This doesn't violate the rules. What do you think? The system screen shows a notification to deactivate the Genesis system, and he confirms, yes, this action is irreversible. The Genesis system has been deactivated. In the next instant, the Ottoman soldier is already jumping to cut Yoo Hyun in half. Blood splatters in all directions as he pulls a sword from somewhere and calmly eliminates the soldier. This leaves Heron in shock. Satan laughs non-stop while watching the broadcast. What could be going on in this crazy person's head? Ryum blurts out that he always wanted to be the Ryum of his own story, the regret of not having done this in his youth, and the expectations that his mother placed on him. All of this was a mess inside him, but Ryum also condemned him to live full of inferiority complexes. His former self believed in Doyum's words, feeling useless, which made him give up on his plans. But with Ryrum, the situation is very different. She stands firm even at her peak, with the demeanor of someone who knows what she wants. and Yu Hyun is radiating happiness with her choice. The Ottomans are coming again, and he looks back, knowing that out of respect for the girl, he cannot stand still. While laughing, Aguigi, sword in hand, protects his collector. She shouts, asking if he's crazy. He could die there, but responds that it's what he needs to do. He charges at the soldiers, showing he's as determined as she is, and soon starts taking down several with ease. The system window flashes, indicating they've already surpassed 1,200 spectators. He replies that this is great, very good for everyone. She laughs at his joke about how the stage was a grand debut for an actor who didn't even have a name yet. Ryorin thanks Yuri for the help and says she will leave the rest of the fight to him. Blocking a spear thrust, he is calm, and in the next moment, he asks to open the domain shop. Most counters are just observing the scuffle. That's his vibe, theirs, and even the humans. But should they just watch these stories unfold? There was no rule preventing them from doing something contrary to the other's thoughts. That's why Hyun decides to join the fight. He wanted to create a brand new story and show his face. The Ottomans scream to kill the witch, thinking that would grant them victory, but the next moment something cuts their necks. Yu Hyun's blade is too fast. He asserts that he won't let this happen. The soldiers are shocked by the new fighter, and Yu Hyun shouts that no one will get past him. While he laughs and observes everything, grateful, she begins to cast a spell, mentioning that he gave her the courage she needed. The Ottomans are terrified, unable to handle Yu Hyun's strength. No one could pass him without losing their life. The master of ceremonies, confident and smiling, is strong, even though he is just a human. Several magical inscriptions surround Ryorim as she reflects on the courage he had to give up his blessing just to help. Therefore, she also decides to return to the fight. A sword is embedded in the ground. It's Yuri's sword. He is also reaching his limit. How much longer would she need, seeing that he stopped to take a break? The enemies advance, shouting that this is their chance to win. But before they can reach Mac, one of them shouts, pointing upwards, asking what that is. Ryo looks back and sees a bright light, leaving him speechless. The system announces that she has unlocked the complete union between body and sword. She has a serious expression and a powerful aura as she advances toward the celestial sword. The Ottomans, terrified, try to retreat, but it's too late. Haler brings down his sword with all the strength he can muster. A powerful slash goes near Yuri but doesn't hit him, causing massive destruction. Looking to the side, he thinks he never expected her to get so strong so fast and is happy about it. Constantino appears behind them, thanking for the help. This gives them time to fight against the Ottomans, but Roar warns that it's only temporary. Constantino laments that he doesn't have the strength to continue this battle. He has lost hope, but Mac said there's still something they can do. This war will not end like the others, and he is sure of it. Raising his sword, Mac declares that they need to kill the leader. That is the only way to win. The old man thinks that's impossible, and Ryo says it seems impossible, but it isn't, especially with Ryorin. At that moment, the Ottoman army retreats. The problem with this battle was the overwhelming numbers, and coming back alive would be a complicated mission. Ryo mentions they need at least 300 men for that, and asks the old man if he can help, but he doesn't respond right away. Looking to the side, he sees several men already volunteering for the mission. Even before asking, worn out and injured, they recognize the old man as their emperor. Grateful, he says that everyone there is willing to give their lives and everything they have for the protection of the nation. He has an enormous debt to them. He acknowledges that he said the gods would help them, but that won't happen. So the responsibility for protection is solely theirs. He asks them to defend their homeland until the end. Anyone who wants to join them can stay. It's not an order, just an offer. Whoever wants to leave has every right to decide. Is there anyone who wants to accompany the Emperor on this kamikaze mission? He leans forward, eyes closed, making this appeal. Several soldiers step forward without hesitation, deeply moving Constantine. He thanks everyone who was there. Apparently none of them decided to flee. Then, Ryo says it's time to go, and everyone begins this journey. A large army watches from afar the destruction in Constantinople. Mercedes, the emperor of that time, comments that Dragusis has no intention of giving up. He gets a bit distracted. Things seem different now. Their reinforcements must have fallen back, but there are still some left. A soldier shouts that the Romans are coming. Constantine, Ryorin, and Yuri are on horseback, while the others march on foot. Mercedes asks what they are planning, and some soldiers already look alarmed. Constantine shouts to start the attack, and the battle resumes. The archers fire the first volley of arrows toward the small army of 300. The arrows come, and the old man shouts for someone to stop this. Several soldiers are hit. The horses also fall. The chaos is enormous. It felt like a senseless battle. This reminds me of the 300 Spartans. Ryorin screams in despair at so many deaths, but Yorin tells her not to look back. She tries to protest, but Yoyum insists that they came knowing the fate, and to honor them, she must protect her nation. If she really feels bad, she has to complete this mission. Someone manages to clear a path for Ryarinha to advance and break through the army. A spear hits a soldier behind her, killing him instantly. She looks back, terrified. Despair begins to take hold of the girl's heart. She wants to stop and help, but someone shouts, calling her a saint. A soldier says they will handle things back there and that she shouldn't worry. This battle is really amazing, isn't it? Constantine, all excited, announces that they spotted a Cyprus, commander of the Ottoman cavalry. And the guys were coming, and Yuri jumps off the horse and tells Heron to do the same. They both hit the ground, but already standing, ready to fight again. They would lag behind, and Yuri screams for Heron not to look back and to keep going. She's got such rage in her eyes, man. They both manage to get past the cavalry and are heading straight for the Sultan. Chipa notices and goes into a panic. Several lost soldiers try to stop her, but she just takes them down with ease, yelling at them. She exterminates everyone who tries to hinder her quick and fierce journey. The two cut through a bunch of soldiers. It was a battle for survival. Let's go! Their synergy was incredible. They were there to save the crew. Yu Hyun shouts that they're almost at the Sultan, and they charge for another joint attack. In Yui's mind, it was too late to gather soldiers to protect Mercedes, but he sees a shield on the ground, and a light goes off. He shouts to Heron that he's going to grab a shield and throw low towards the Sultan. She's a bit confused, but he grabs the shield and sets it up for her to use as a springboard. Then the moment arrived. With a leap, she reaches the shield and Yuri pushes her up. She climbs higher than any soldier or archer could imagine. Everyone could only look up, mouths agape, as she ascended, and Yuri yells for Heron to fly. At that moment, she spreads her wings and transforms into an angel that illuminates the scene. I'm getting emotional here, folks. Someone shouts for the archers to shoot and try to stop the girl. They prepare to unleash arrows at lightning speed. She dodges the shots and is almost reaching the Sultan to end the war. In the blink of an eye, she can only look up and unleash an incredible dragon. It was his greatest enemy, but this moment was pure emotion. An explosion hits the Sultan. Heron is kneeling, half a second cut in two. This is going to cause trouble, but it's fine. Yu-hyun can't believe what's happening, as it's surreal. To see this live, everyone starts to disappear, and Heron standing has a very grim look. Following the sword, she shouts that they won the battle, while the Romans rejoice in euphoria. Constantine watches in silence, so impressed that he begins to cry, thinking that they have finally achieved that goal. This is what he wanted, to see the crowd happy in front of him. Hiram and Yu-hyun exchange glances as the old man comes to thank them once again. He removes his helmet and bows, saying that he will never forget their kindness, even if they are creatures of this realm. Yu-hyun disagrees, and is also emotionally overwhelmed with joy. The old man is confused, but Yu-hyun says that they are real too, and that he shouldn't belittle himself like that. A simple thank you is more than enough. This touches Constantine's heart, who becomes emotional. Constantine says he would like to reward them in some way, but nothing as mundane as money. So, he grants them titles of knighthood. Rio is shocked and Rerum asks what is going on. Yu-hyun explains that in ancient Rome, a knight's title was valuable, and in their mixed world, it is even better. Being knighted gives even more power. In storytelling, something that money cannot buy. In the name of Constantine, Dragus the Spreader, the old man will bestow the title of Distinguished Knights, a boost to the skills of the young ones. Fading away, the old man says that pure glory awaits them. The soldiers also thank Santa, emotional, promising that they will never forget. They truly are grateful, and also disappear. In the end, they have finally achieved their goal, and Rerum and Rio agree. The girl is emotional, thinking they were going to fail, but they made it. The system announces that they have accomplished a groundbreaking feat and have been rewarded with 10,000 points. Crying with joy, Rerum sees that their names will be eternally remembered in the mixed world and starts laughing. Several other rewards appear for them, both from donations and achievements. The Master of Ceremonies is happy to fight alongside Rerum and says that no matter what happens, they will always be together. She smiles, still, wrapped up in emotion, asserting that this is all that matters. Their names will be engraved throughout the world. The crowd always said they were useless, and it was true for a time. But no more books appear in front of Yoryun, his book. This was his first story, that of the fighter's accountant and his sword empress, the tale that would start it all. Let's take a break for management now. And he asks, being on a call, how he can help. The person on the other end wants an interview, but her schedule is full, so it's not happening at the moment. Watching closely, Yoryun notices that, even busy, she is very good at what she does. She hangs up for a moment and asks Yuri if he is really going to give up on the Genesis blessing. He acts silly and throws himself into Yoryun's lap, saying he will give up. He asks her to get off him, but that goes down the drain. She smiles and asks if that isn't dangerous. He replies it is, but at least he is with Riarim now that they are fighting together. She can consider him as a collector too. Riarim seems really happy to be close. She starts to say that they have quite a close relationship, but he gives her a whack on the head, saying he already asked her to get off him. Rio asks if she isn't tired. She says yes, but she is happy to have worked so much these days. She still can't believe they managed to clear out a notorious domain by themselves. She never imagined they could. On that, Yorion asks her not to accept all the requests that come in, and she immediately agrees. She has already rejected clan requests, but the pressure is complicated. They even received a few commercial offers, but Yuri told her to reject all of them unless they were really good. The system opens several messages. Various divine spirits wanted to make donations after that battle, but he blocks them all. As much as having a ton of subscribers in the library was a dream, it was time to set some rules to prevent things from getting messy. It was all peace and love, but Yorino decided to show he wasn't joking around and made an apple appear in his hand. Curious, Riarim asks what that thing is, and out of nowhere a crazy guy yells, thinking it's the fruit of life. He says she knows it well, and she casually mentions that this is part of her job, just basic. Rio explains that he got that apple right after the battle in Constantinople. The crowd is shocked just to see it, and the one who gave him the apple was none other than Satan himself, because there was a territory dispute to scare other spirits over the Riam River. Reiram doesn't seem the slightest bit impressed by the little fruit, but Suki points out that this one is one of the most famous fruits in the world. Riam adds that, although small, it's worth more than 10 million in gold, but he has to be careful, because consuming something like that in the wrong configuration could make his body explode like a supernova. So, it takes someone unprepared to use that fruit out of the blue. A message appears, and Yoyum finds it strange since he had blocked everything. A being that shines like a Christmas light wants to have a private meeting with Yuri. The guy gets up, saying he needs to receive an important visit and has to leave right now. The two girls are completely lost. Before they can try to stop him, he accepts the invitation and is teleported at the speed of light. Now he finds himself in an open space, flying as if he were in the sky, a place he has never seen in his life. In the past, someone appears. Upon turning around, Yuhyun is stunned, but the identity of the person remains a mystery. Cut to the scene with the strange accountant who tried to threaten Yor. Yuhyun is in shock with what he just saw, completely incredulous. He wonders how Yor Yuhyun managed to crush Constantinople. He himself couldn't have done it. The guy survived even a battle without his blessing. What a desperate Iron Man. He starts to think about how to find a way to defeat that boy. On second thought, he realizes that now that Yorion doesn't have the Genesis blessing, he might be able to attack without facing consequences. Even if he can't defeat the Sword Girl, if everything goes well, the game changes. With a wicked grin, he sends a bunch of negative comments, bad-mouthing the Empress and asking for Yuhyun to be eliminated, since the guy is without a blessing. Blinded by revenge, the only idea that crosses his mind is to make Yuhyun pay for abandoning his blessing. And then, finally, we find out who called Yuri to the secret meeting. None other than the Archangel Michael. He thanks the Master of Ceremonies for his presence, mentions that he didn't expect a direct request from Eden, but he is calm about showing up, already making a table and chairs in the air. Michael asks Yuri to sit down, and he is shocked by the guy's display of power. The Archangel asks if he is not impressed, and Yo Hyun replies, how could he not be? The guy is a figure he wanted to meet. The Archangel, who seems very relaxed, quickly changes the subject and says he called Yo Hyun to check on some rumors. Calmly, he asks if anything comes to mind for Yo Hyun, and Yo Hyun has certainly caught on to what this is about. He mentions that Michael must be talking about the gift he received from Satan, since those guys are longtime enemies. To calm the Archangel, he makes it clear that he is not in the good graces of Pandemonium, which makes Miguel very happy. Yo Hyun continues saying he never thought Eden would notice his library, but Miguel comments that only fools believe in rumors. After observing carefully, he realizes that Urim really has no ties to Pandemonium, but on the other hand, something is not right. He asks if that thing about Yuri and Satan having a strong connection is true. The Master of Ceremonies wonders if Michael is trying to gauge the level of their friendship, and Yo Hyun explains how things went down during the rookie accountant's ceremony. Michael asks if he gave the fruit of life just because that happened and says that Satan seemed interested in him, but had to decline the offer. Michael asks why the guy refused. Normally, these sponsorships are a huge help. Yo Hyun agrees, but emphasizes that people have their priorities. For him, the goal he had was more important than any sponsorship. In the end, this decision made Satan even more interested in him. Michael understood. He just wanted to confirm the rumor. He said it can be assumed that he is not on the Pandemonium team, but he wants to take the opportunity to ask something, and shining like a star, Michael asks if Yo-hyun would be interested in being sponsored by Eden. The kid had already figured this would happen. After all, it was Michael who came to talk, not just any little angel. Eden was one of the greatest divine powers he had. It was an absurd offer, but Yuri-1 decides he will not accept Archangel Michael's proposal. When asked why, Yuri-1 explains that the reason is the same as before. His goal is more important than any sponsorship. He doesn't want to align his library with any side. Michael asks if he intends to tell the stories from both sides, and Yuri clarifies that it's not that simple. He just wants something free from influence. He may seem a bit arrogant, but if Michael thinks he's out of his mind, he can just watch the path he will take. The Archangel became curious about the direction and the ending of the tale of a storyteller who refused Eden's offer. The words of the Master of Ceremonies touched Michael. Even though he is not selfish, he has a burning passion for good stories. The Archangel questions whether Yuri-1 is saying he wants to have both Eden and Pandemonium at the same time. Yuri-1 gives a small smile but does not answer. Standing up, the Archangel says that Eden will respect his wish and that his story has captured his interest, so he will keep an eye on him. In any case, he wants to thank him for taking the time to meet him. Yuri-1 is lost and asks what that means. The Archangel responds with the same line that Satan had given to Yui at the beginning of the story. It would be rude for Eden not to give anything in return, right? With an egg in hand, he hands it to Yuri-1, saying it is a personal symbol of gratitude. The boy even acknowledges that he might feel a little awkward receiving the gift. At home, he shows the egg to the two girls, who keep asking if he got it from a client, their curiosity piquing to know what is inside. Yuri-1 starts to theorize that it could be a dragon that will hatch, but that's just his guess. In fact, he knew it wasn't a dragon. For angels, dragons were the embodiment of evil, but the egg begins to crack, interrupting his train of thought. Irin goes into a panic, screaming that something will hatch, and the three stop to observe everything closely. A little owl emerges from the egg, looking more like the child of S.H.I.E.L.D. hero than anything else. Yo-hyun recognizes it as an owl, and the girls are already completely smitten. Crazy to show affection, the owl flies like an arrow towards Yo-hyun's head, leaving Irin frustrated, thinking the owl doesn't like her. Symbolically, the creature that represents Satan is a snake, and owls are its natural predators. A clear message. He realizes that even the little owl that recognized him as a mother carries a skill book that he can read. Irin suggests naming it Ulu, but the others find it awful, and I don't understand why. Also, Suri asks what name Yuri would give to the owl. He thinks for a moment and decides to call it Bio, which means white owl. The little creature seems to enjoy the name, making a cute face at the three of them. Cut to a scene near a portal with guys who seem to be collectors. A blonde woman arrives and asks if everything went well inside. The hooded man replies that it wasn't as planned, but they manage to hold their ground. Aaron and Oyun appear and are recognized, catching the attention of the two who are talking. The crowd is shocked by their presence. The fame had already reached that place. The truth is they weren't fans of Aaron since she messed up the collector's plans, cleaning domains instead of just exploring them. They refer to her as the farm destroyer and rush to the domain to try to get something together before she arrives for the cleaning. Watching the whole scene, Aaron becomes even more motivated to clean the domain quickly, and Rio notices that she has already gotten used to the nickname. He asks her to wait and hold Bay for a while because he wants to make an announcement before opening the library, and she agrees. When he opens the library, several divine spirits enter. Immediately, the audience is already close to 2,500, and he has nearly 1,200 subscribers, numbers that impress. With a smile, he welcomes them and informs them that they are in the library of the Fighter Teller and the Empress of the Sword, and the spirits respond, greeting him. Yuri has barely started the live stream, and everything is already turning chaotic, with the crowd commenting wildly and sending donations. Even Lady Satan, who was part of the organization, asks the crowd to calm down because he has an announcement with the most difficult things to control since he started fighting. New rules are going to be established in the library, and everyone agrees. The rules are no cliques in the library, and no talking about other libraries to avoid drama. Hatred will result in banning. The crowd starts complaining. One even makes a donation to say he's leaving, and Yuri quickly blocks him. Most of the divine spirits are upset with Yuri's attitude, but deep down it was a strategy to put everyone in their place. There is a spirit called the White King of the Setting Sea who donates 1,000 points and promises to keep sending, but asks Yo-hyun to take it easy. Even though it's a huge donation, Yo-hyun mentions that rules are rules, and there will be no exceptions. Before he can say more, the divine spirit makes another donation of 10,000 and asks if that changes anything. Everyone is shocked by this donation. Even Urium is frustrated by this miserable move. The guy tries to control Urium's library with a bribe, and Urium looks at the donation without saying anything and starts thinking about the donor's name. Such great power could only come from one person, someone associated with celestial dominion, the White Dragon of the West. He was sure that famous divine spirits would come to his library, but he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Urium is not surprised to see one of the 4 sea dragons in his library. As the donor raises his head arrogantly, he makes another donation of 10,000 to loosen up, thinking that everyone was trying to come together. Urium laughs and asks what he meant by moderately. Quickly, he returns to a serious tone and says that it will not happen, leaving everyone in silence. The king of the setting sea wants to know what that means, and Yoyum responds that no means no, but his answer remains unclear. Another donation of 10,000 arrives, with the king asking how much it would cost for him to bow. His pride was wounded, and Hyun stands firm. No matter how much he donated, there would be no exceptions or bribery. Nothing could change his decision. The divine spirit was furious with this answer, but all that, Hyun said it's up to him to accept or step out of the broadcast. Meanwhile, in real life, Irin sees a red light above her and the little creature of the Master of Ceremonies, wondering what it's about. Seeing the entire sky red, the Master of Ceremonies thinks he must be so angry, given that his power crossed realms. Suddenly, the Genesis system activates like a red lightning bolt descending upon reality. As long as this system is active, the divine spirit will not unleash its power. Without thinking, another donation of 10,000 comes in with the Sea King saying he just needs to crawl because money buys everything. He keeps firing donations of 10,000 points if that's enough, but Yorion is unfazed, opening the lock window. He thanks for the donations. He had let slip a rudeness, so now he's got the message blocked by the library. The system reported that the Sunset Sea King was expelled from the library, leaving everyone in shock. But Yorion is laughing. He warns that rules are rules, but if everyone follows, it will be smooth. Suddenly, a red light appears again behind Yuri. A red message screams, calling him a beast. The divine spirit has returned. Yuri is in shock. How did he manage to bypass the system's blockade? To think he has this power is both incredible and terrifying. Yuri mentions that he understands the anger, but he crossed the line. This enrages the White Dragon even more, and he curses Yu Hyun, saying that being banned after so many donations was a humiliation he would not accept, and makes a clear threat to the boy. Calmly, Yu Hyun says he never insulted even the 36 heavens, let alone the White Dragon of the West. He just removed a guest who broke the rule. The divine spirit screams at Yu Hyun, asking how he dares to speak to him like that. A new window appears. Michael has entered the library. He sends a donation of 100 points and asks what is going on. Yuri and the divine spirit are confused to see Michael there. And the Genesis system activates again. The system warns that it has detected an anomaly and confirms the target, the White Dragon. Due to excessive power usage, according to the system rules, a standard procedure will initiate. A lightning bolt strikes the window of the divine spirit, making it scream in pain. This leaves Yurion surprised. The system has dominated even one of the most powerful divine spirits in the mixed world. Finally, the Sea King of the Poet is expelled from the library of Yuri and the system window disappears. After all this confusion, Yohyun warns that following the rules will prevent problems, and if anyone has complaints, now is the time. But no one dares go against the rules. Some still watch Michael in silence. The angel had an effect on them, calling Harin. He said that since there are no more complaints, they can proceed, and warns that they will clean another domain. Cleaning another domain like Constantinople would be quite a hassle. Today, they will do something more relaxed, which disappoints some spirits. He warns them not to make a drama. They are not entering the domain, just to hang out. The crowd is happy to see Rihanna. When they are ready, they enter a forest called Teodolante Swamps. That place looked quite different from what they were used to cleaning, and the spirits agree. First, they need to find the boundary line of the area, and he said he would do the presentation with Harin. Before they could start talking, someone calls him and they turn to see who it is. 4 collectors are there, and what seems to be the leader asks if the 6 can hunt together. The man inquires if it was just the 2 of them, and Yoyum confirms it. He commented that they usually hunt in groups of 6, but the guys lost 2 teammates for reasons no one knows. Just 4 in the team. Rairam found all this a bit strange. It was as if they were alienated, unaware of the rumors or nicknames that are going around. They were there to put an end to the mess and join people who just want to cultivate. It's a pretty silly idea. The girl almost refused, but the master of ceremonies preempted her, announcing that it was perfect. They were indeed looking for a team. She was confused, not understanding why he chose to join these folks. Looking closer, she spotted a gorgeous blonde with them and had a mental breakdown. How can a blonde be like that? Ryarim was nervous, admitting that the girl was indeed beautiful, and Yoyum had felt nothing until then. That jolt left her in a panic, wondering if this was the girl Hyung liked. Man, I couldn't stop laughing at her reaction to the dude. After the business between them was settled, the master of ceremonies called the colleague, who already had the look of someone who's taken a scare seriously. Only when she said it was a pleasure to meet everyone did the leader seem a bit confused. What was that all about? They stepped aside to grab their things, and the master just waited, satisfied. He looked at Ririn, who still had the face of someone who didn't understand anything, and unintentionally took the word from everyone. She was really pissed about the situation. The girl started crying, thinking that if she went on a diet, she could look like that too, and Yoyum just asked her to relax. Rio moved closer to her, which made her confused and blush. She questioned whether he really wanted to do this there. She wasn't complaining, but there were a lot of divine spirits accompanying the scene. Ignoring her anxieties, he asked her to pay attention to what he was about to say. That whole group was made up of grave robbers. She was speechless for a moment. The scene shifted and showed the group robbing a collector who, poor guy, didn't have the same luck. They seemed pretty satisfied with what they managed to take from the body, right? These guys made a living stealing stories and text from others. What a cowardice. Hiron was left wondering if they approached the two just to steal the stories, but Yoyum said they didn't stop there. Among the robbers, there were not only thieves, but also some murderers, the gang that just wanted to kill. The girl agreed with what he said, thinking it was likely, but still had a doubt. How did he know they were robbers? Even the divine spirits were curious to know. He remembered that the leader had said it was complicated to hunt with. But their clothes were very clean, being in a swamp with water up to their knees. How were they so clean? That just doesn't make sense. The strange thing was how they approached, as if they didn't know who they were. If they didn't know, it was still very suspicious. The arrival of two strangers was extremely suspicious. She asked why he hadn't rejected the proposal, and the answer was that the grace would have to come from that. He kept talking to the spirits, and the villains thought they were easy prey. If these guys got to them, they would just walk away. Imagine what others would do in Yohri's place. Everyone, even Miguel, agreed that they couldn't let it slide, that they should break that little criminal group. The plan was to pretend they were unaware of anything, to do what the villains expected and strike at the right moment. This could yield one heck of a story. They wanted to know if they would really be deceived, and Yoyum responded with another question. Who do you think is easier to fool? The answer was those who think they understand everything and believe that what lies ahead is the whole world. These were Yuri's favorites. A big fool appeared angry and was defeated on the spot. The leader of the gangs praised Rierin for taking down that Ciboro with a single punch, and the blonde started to give a great compliment. The leader was wondering why the Sword Empress was so formidable. He stepped back a bit. When the leader asked where he was going, Yoyum said he needed to take care of something quickly. The leader commented that it was dangerous to go alone and called over a kid named Yongun to accompany him, thinking that Yoyum was just going to the bathroom. The silver-haired boy, nervous, accepted immediately and said he would go with him. Rio just observed the scene, not wanting to oppose. Using telepathy, he warned Ryarin that the group was probably moving now that they were separated. They drifted away from the main group, but Yongun seemed uncomfortable, visibly nervous. The host, noticing this, asked if everything was all right, making the boy even more anxious. And Rio commented that if something was wrong, he could tell him, but he also thought he was in the loop. He had read in his books that the three with Ryarin were a complete story, but the boy shone. He was different. He seemed normal, but with a trembling voice, he asked Yuri if his name was Yuri. Still nervous, he whispered to the cashier, who needed to escape as soon as possible. Surprising the divine spirits, sweating like a madman, he informed the master of ceremonies that the other three were assassins and that he was being forced to stay with them. He even suggested that they needed to eliminate 2 more people. He tried to refuse, but felt that Yuri 1 would not let it go easily, and in the end, he was one of them wanting to help Yuri 1. He begged to be allowed to leave. Yuri 1 slipped away and said he would lie and say he killed him to try to help Rierim as well. But Yuri 1 was interested and wanted to know why the group wanted to eliminate them. The boy mentioned that a famous accountant from a division had requested this, catching Yo Yu Hyun's attention. The divine spirits were like, wow, the kid is really trying to help Yo-Yu-Hyun and rear him. Yo-Yu-Hyun was pleased with this and decided to stay there instead of fleeing, leaving the boy terrified. Yo-Yum explained that he was already aware of the, whole situation. With more nervousness, the accountant felt relieved by Yo-Yum's response, which assured him that he was a good person. At that moment, arriving where the other four were, he saw the shocking scene. The three ghouls piled on the ground like trash bags. The AMG was in shock. How did the girl manage to defeat three collectors on her own? The master of ceremonies commented that there was no need to tie them up. Looking at her, he thought he wished she had pretended to be weak when she asked to fight alone, but the girl ignored it and remained steadfast in her mission. The three began to awaken, and Yuri urged them to hurry because, well, it wasn't like they had been murdered by the Empress, and Yu-Hyun was still a bit dazed, but regaining consciousness until he realized the situation and saw that Yonggun was calm. He shouted at that kid, accusing him of betrayal, wanting to know if he had turned in his friends, but the others remained silent, and Yu-Hyun positioned himself in front of the boy who was still listening to the insults. Yo-Ri-Won stepped on the gang leader's arm. The guy screamed in pain and quickly explained that this Baek-Wan-Ri-Won is a Class 7 collector with a record of murdering more than 10 people. Besides various other crimes, Ri-Um revealed that he had plans to eliminate a certain nameless man and that the Empress of the Sword was not one of them. This brings us to the crucial question: who hired you? Breathless, the thug tries to act tough, stating that he won't spill the beans. But Yorihan quietly asks if he doesn't fear the law and justice. He screams that the worst that could happen is ending up in jail. The divine spirits say that Yorihan should just eliminate the crime right there, no strings attached. Yo-Yum remains silent, making Riem feel more confident with his threats. He shouts louder, but Yo-Yum interrupts, drawing his sword. He thrusts the sword into the thug next to Ri-Um without a second thought. Beck, confused, looks to the side and can't believe the scene. Eo Ri-Um gives a sly smile, saying that this was already enough. The other two are in shock, staring at their partner who is now floating in the waters of the mental domain. They panic and start screaming for mercy from Yo-Hyun, who only smiles without saying anything. The girl in despair cries out, saying that it wasn't her fault. It was he who forced her. But Yo-Hyun raises his sword. Rairin grabs Yo-Hyun's arm. He looks at her, wondering if she is trying to stop him from taking out another thug. Maybe she thinks he's a monster for doing this. But suddenly she also draws her sword and, with a diagonal blow, she cuts the girl, who sprays blood everywhere and falls on the other side of the river, lifeless. Rio watches the scene in shock. He realizes that Rairin did this to vent her jealousy over the girl, and man, that made me laugh. Yoyon admitted he might have underestimated the girl. Meanwhile, Rio looks at his companion, shocked by the scene. Irina warns that she will take care of him, approaching Rio slowly. She reflects that she realized something during the battle in Constantinople. To achieve her goals, she must be willing to do whatever it takes. The man screams in despair, begging to be spared. Now that the reality has sunk in, he tries to explain himself to avoid being eliminated. Criminals are all the same. Ryun even said that they would regret killing him. While Yuri asks if he knows anything, he doesn't even have the moral to negotiate anything. Trying to buy time with words, the man says that if they kill him there, they will never find out who hired him. And Ryun reveals that it was Impum from the Pentagram Division. Hearing that name was a blow to Ryun's heart, who became desperate. The man wanted to know how he found out and merely questions if he really thought he didn't know about the secret deal. As he turns to leave the scene, Rio decides to leave the rest to Hirin, who ends up covered in blood. He screams in desperation, asking her not to come closer, calling for help. Rio screams for Yonggun, begging for assistance, but the boy is also in shock over the scene. Unfazed, Rairam stands before the guy who tried to screw her over and her future beloved. And yes, I'm already rooting for these two to be together. Tears stream down Yo Ryun's face. He already knew there was no turning back. His last glimpse was of the presenter with a grotesque and insane smile. Then, with a single stroke of the sword, his head is severed from his body. Rio was enjoying the scene, witnessing the downfall of someone who thought they knew it all. It was undoubtedly satisfying. He knew this could be a distorted form of justice, but an indelible mark left by the experiences of the cruel First World might seem a bit strange, yet he couldn't help it. It was who he was, and he was loving it all. The Master of Ceremonies simply hopes that Impum from the Pentagram Division will do something as impactful as the three had just done. Excited, the Divine Spirits comment that the story was sensational, even though some wanted more. And someone watches the scene dazed, falling backward. He couldn't process everything he just witnessed. A head of a Rio was beside him, and the sight horrified him to the point of vomiting from disgust and despair. The others look at him as he questions his actions. He thought he could help someone for the first time in his life, but what he saw and the weight of his supposed courage were in vain. Since he had been deceived by the two from the beginning, he starts to ask why, yelling at them both, asking why, but his companions are gone. Yuri then replies that if they hadn't done this, they would be dead. And Yongun shouts that if they had run away, no one would have died. But for him, it all became a big joke. The narrators don't care about humans. He shouts, and the river knows nothing, having never had to make an effort in life, and therefore doesn't care. And the river pulls that everyone has their own role in life. They just refuse to accept it and pursued what they shouldn't have. For Yongun, it may seem like they were chosen, but in reality, they were just like that kid over there, crying and shaking. The boy wants to know why he is the way he is, and the river says he accepted his reality, while the others flee from the one they want to create. In the end, furious, the boy shouts, asking what to do if all his efforts turn to smoke, and the river observes the boy's desolation, only commenting that the human world is small. He becomes confused, thinking that everything he sees and feels is what exists. When someone calls him a failure, he believes it as the truth. He only thinks this is the truth of the world because all the focus is on him. But that's it. In the end, life is this big mess full of challenges. The boy's head is still spinning with these words. The master of ceremonies gets real. The world out there doesn't care about him, has no idea he exists, and doesn't care to change things. The kid needs to change the view he has of the world and show who he really is. Okay, it might be hard, but it's much better than giving up on what he wants without even trying. After this motivational speech, he decides to kick the door open. Raerim asks if everything's okay. He affirms it, but Yoo-hyun responds that it's cool. The kid is going to chill, back to the whole cleaning the domain thing. The girl is demolishing everything with ease until she reaches the final boss, Lepra, with a sinister heel. Jerem performs an acrobatic spin and takes down the plant monster with a sword strike. It was too easy, you know. They get a bunch of rewards for cleaning the domain and even get the story of the herb puller. And the boss's resin, the domain starts to take over, and something catches her attention. She comments that cleaning a domain makes the dirt you gained there disappear too, only calling the wounds and rewards. She thinks it's cool that all the dirt disappears after defeating the boss, and he confirms that's true, except for the wounds and rewards. After Yo-hyun's talk, she emphasizes that he has been lost in daydreams from before. Yuri continues to think that he used to believe people didn't change, but seeing the boy's book change color turned his head around. There might really be people who can change their own destiny, and he told her that he is not in a crisis, and that it's time to return to the real world. They arrive and are greeted by several collectors crying because they couldn't enter the domain earlier. The divine spirits are laughing at the collectors' despair as they are asking for refunds for their losses. No stress, Yo-yum has already gotten everything he wanted and calls Yaram to head back to the company. Soryun is relaxing, saying she is tired, while the other girl asks how the job was. Karen said nothing special happened, but they got several rewards for cleaning the entire area. Curious, Yohri asks the girl to open the status window and she agrees right away. Analyzing the data, he seems a bit frustrated, and upon noticing the expression, she asks if something is wrong. He comments that everything there is very vague. It seems like all her skills are bugged. Despite her rapid growth, the girl agrees that this is strange, but he finds it problematic, as it leaves them in the dark about her true potential. In Yuri-um's past life, the status metrics were much more detailed compared to now. He asks the girl if she worked hard, and seeing her status, he wonders what he will feel. She answers desperately. The problem is, it all seems intentional to demotivate the collectors with confusing metrics. There's someone behind this. Up until now, Yo-hyun thought the apocalypse was the fault of the lazy collectors. It was too early to suspect something, but if his theory of someone being behind this is true, the conflict can be intense. Rio starts to chuckle softly. The master of ceremonies is thinking that whoever is in the shadows trying to control everything might come after him. This way, he will truly enjoy the victory when he takes these guys down. Sorry, one left quickly, but is already coming back to the company. Aaron asks where she was, and she replies that she went to a meeting with the magazines, and that soon an interview is happening. The girl panics, and Soryu explains that it's time to start showing up to the world. Collectors are like celebrities, says Yu, and these things are part of life. If she wants to be known, an interview is a timely idea. Rayrim is irritated and doesn't want to do interviews, but the presenter, in her mind, responds that the money will come flowing in. If she agrees, she quickly changes her attitude and asks how much she will earn. Ryan mentions that a few 100,000 would be little, and now she is agreeing with everything, changing the subject quickly. Sorium asks what the guy is doing, and he replies that he is fiddling with a weapon. They find it strange since it was just an old cheap sword from the system shop. Yuri agrees with him. He asks her to open the system window and check the sword's information, which was an ancient sword from San Salho. That should be a good thing. Yorion explains that this name is well known in the crazy world, an empire famous for its magical engineering that made history. The sword was a relic of the Salio Empire. Yorion understood this, but the world he is in still doesn't have that idea. This was a hidden item hardly found in the realms of the mind, and Rio tells Ryrim that she needs to start training the main attack skill, leaving the girl confused. Pointing at her, Yohyun warns that soon she will be a middle-class collector and needs a skill that suits her physique. It seems that she skipped a process that most collectors take years to go through and did it at an impressive pace. Therefore, she needs to develop a technique worthy of a good mid-level or high-level story, and then she asks if these stories aren't expensive. He replies that they can be obtained for almost free. He asked her to open the shop and look for a low-level story called Thunder Steps. She finds it and says it costs 100 points. Then, there's the internal skill Thunder Berserker in the medium-level stories, and finally, Storm Fury in the low-level stories. Hirion almost buys all three, but Suri warns her that these are known to be bad. No one can handle the speed of the Thunder Steps. The Thunder Berserker skill is so powerful that it makes the user's body twist all the time, and in the case of Storm Fury, it is an extremely useless sword skill. These three skills together were known as the Three Useless Brothers. This leaves Rierim stunned. Is it really safe to learn them? And Rio asks if she doesn't trust him. She decides to buy, enamored with him and obedient. After acquiring the skills, she asks if she should learn them all at once and integrate them into her body. Lightning begins to burst from the girl's body, leaving Surium in shock, while Yuri positions himself in front of her. He holds the sword amid the lightning coming from Hyrim. The sword begins to change its blade. Surium is terrified, and we see the sword transform into another, even impressing Yoryun. Surprised, the girl asks if this was the sword's original form, and Rio hands it to her, warning her to be careful with the lightning. Looking at the blade, he thinks he knew it was a beautiful sword, but in person, it's even better. He adopts a serious posture. It seems she really absorbed the stories she bought, and he asks if she feels any discomfort, but she says she doesn't feel anything special. Now it's time for her to open the status window and see the skills she gained by mixing those three stories. The three lightning skills disappear from her talent tree and merge into something called Celestial Lightning Sword. This hidden skill allows her to control the lightning coming from the sky. It's a more powerful skill than any other high tier one. Ryan was even more in love with Yuri, and in the excitement of the moment, she jumped to hug him, but the quick boy dodged. He remembers that he cannot touch her until she masters the lightning she controls. Otherwise, he's going to get a shock, tears in his eyes. The girl stands up and asks how he knew about that hidden ability. If he had shown it to the spirits, the crowd would have gone crazy, but the best choice was to do it without them seeing. Otherwise, there would have been loads of questions and then the trouble would have been serious. He tries to warn her that it's better for her to forget that part and tosses the sword into her hand to absorb the lightning without much effort. The high sword starts to glow less, and that catches Surium's attention. She grabs Yorium by the arm and asks to have a private conversation. This time, he doesn't try to run away. Angry, she asks if he used Irim as a battery to make the sword. He replies that it turned out fine in the end, and that all of this was to help her. He is intrigued as to why she was so worried about Irim while she trembled in fear of what could go wrong. If something happened to her, her office would probably turn to ashes. In reality, she was just concerned about the money. Still furious, she tells the master of ceremonies to let her know if he intends to do something like that again. This makes Rio remember that this girl was anything but normal. A strange message arrives, surprising Yoyum. It was the old man from the association saying that he had managed to find Yoyum. Yoyum quickly warns that he needs to leave and asks Ririam to stay close to the sword, as he needed to sort something out. While running to the association, Rio wonders why he is going there. He had no reason to get mixed up with that guy, but he can't shake this impulse. He's going to be pissed when he finds him. Maybe he won't feel anything at all, but either way, he wanted at least to have a word with the guy. Upon arrival, he says he wants to speak with young Mo. Before the receptionist could call the old man, he arrived, asking the boy to come with him, surprising both of them. Alone in the meeting room, Young Mo fires off, "What's the deal with that Choi Doyum?" And Ryun replies that he doesn't know the guy, just heard whispers about him. This seems to please the old man. He places his hands on his garment and says that, thanks to what Yo Hyun said, he managed to investigate the kid. and it wasn't that hard. Taking a picture and passing it to Yu-yun, he asks if that's the Choi from Yun he was looking for. The stunned Yo-yum exclaims that it's really him and asks where he is now. The old man explains that a decade ago, when the land was added to the mixed world, there was an incident on the day of unification. No one knew where the kid had gone. He simply vanished. This leaves Yo-yum devastated, still in shock from the news about Choi from Yu-hyun and Agumanara, who was one of the missing during the 99 days of the revolution. When the land joined the mixed world, there was a colossal collision. Everything collapsed, and stories became reality. That day was marked as the day of unification. In that process, the land was forcefully thrown into a syndicate, and hundreds went missing that day, and no one knows why to this day. It was all a mystery. It was known that the missing had gone to another dimension because some returned, but only as corpses. Those who returned alive came back as monsters. In the future, some of the missing would return intact and be called returnees from another world, but that was not yet the case. Looking at the photo, Yo-yum thinks that Choi from Yo-yum's disappearance was indeed quite a surprise. Perhaps it has to do with his past life. The strength and judgment he showed during the apocalypse were shaped by having to follow the rules of that other world. The old man interrupts his musings and says that the one from Yu-hyun has a mother. This leaves the boy confused. He explains that the woman has been searching for him since he disappeared and now wants to find Yu-hyun. The river is stunned. The old man asks if he is interested in meeting this woman. It is understandable that she would want to find Yuri, as she might be the only lead about her son after so long. He stands up and informs that he will meet the woman later and, if needed, will seek help from the old man again. The man confirms that he can go at any time. Holding the photo tightly, Yuri wonders if his parents are still alive in this reality, but is afraid to find out. If he exists here, what could have happened to his past self? Could there be another King Ryo around? And if so, he is still called father by his parents. How would they react if they thought Yu-yun was an imposter? Someone calls his name and pulls him back to reality. Eren was in front of him, holding the sword. He asks what she is doing there, and she, somewhat awkwardly, replies that she followed him because he seemed worried when he left. He apologizes for leaving like that, but assures her that everything is fine, nothing serious. She comments that it really looks like he is okay now. The girl invites him to go back to the office, and he feels a bit confused. Curious, she asks if he still has something to deal with, but Yu-yun doesn't answer right away. He decided that he will be the protagonist of his own story in this life, and the biggest influence for that were his parents. So, even if they do not accept him as family, he does not need to be afraid or run away from his goals. Riem confirms his certainty and asks if she wants to go with him. The girl gets excited and asks where they are going. Smiling, Yu-yun replies that they are going to meet his saviors because, after all, they are still his parents. On the bus, Ririn finds the presenter super intriguing, a storyteller who does not mix with the others and has a mysterious past. Rio says she is wrong, but she doesn't believe him and says that one day he will tell his story. She asks who these amazing people he calls saviors are, and the presenter agrees they really are amazing. This answer leaves Ririn intrigued about how people can be so respectable. She really wants to know more about UAI's past because she knows nothing. Looking at her, Yu-yun questions if Hiren has a family. He could find that out through her book, but he preferred to do something better. The boy asks Hiren if she has a family. Excited, she asks if he wants to know the reason for his interest, but Yu-yun shakes his head and says it's fine if she doesn't want to answer. She only asked the question because she was happy that he showed interest in her. Then she says that she does not have a family, leaving Yu-yun open-mouthed, smiling. She mentions that she had a family in the past, but does not remember the father who abandoned her right after her mother had her. Perhaps that's why her mother treated her like a burden, abusing her, saying she wasn't his daughter, until one day, in an epic tragedy, she returned home and came across a scene she would never forget. Her mother was hanging lifeless, having taken her own life. After that, her life went on without much happening. She ended up in the orphanage where she was bullied even more by the other children for being shy. Yorion was in shock. She was almost saying that everything was okay now because her life changed because of him, but he interrupted by shouting her name, smiling, and asking what was wrong. But he replied that it was nothing, and commented that her life was also tough. The girl quickly said she didn't care about that. Thanks to him, she finally found a purpose in life and no longer lived like a loser. It was clear she was about to break down emotionally. The Sword Empress he knew wasn't like that, but the truth is he never had the chance to know her old version. He didn't need to keep comparing the two, even if his head was almost tilting. Depending on what he did, the girl could completely change her life. He tried to calm her down, saying it was all right because he would never abandon her. She ran and replied that she would never do that either. These two are so cute. I confess. They finally reached the bus stop where they had to get off. Eugenio's face was as pale as paper. He began to recognize all the places from his childhood. Everything looked the same. The only thing different was him. There was a playground where he always skipped class and his mother always found him there. Someone shouted to a certain Kanguura, accusing her of skipping class again, and she replied that she would go tomorrow. When Yuri saw it, his mouth dropped open. Here's proof that the multiverse is real, because it's the female version of Yuri, and this confuses him. The two, girl Yura and he, stared at each other in shock. Once again, someone shouted Yura's name, saying that those who run away from responsibilities will never get anywhere. Yura rolled her eyes, asking the person to stop bothering her, while the master of ceremonies just observed. The person in front of him was his mother. She noticed the presence of the master of ceremonies, and he approached. She apologizes for speaking loudly, but he wants to call her mother, whispering as he approaches. Reality hits, and the boy questions what he was expecting. Kang, the river, doesn't exist in this world. Someone is already in his place, interrupting his thoughts. The woman apologizes to Yoyu, looking at him. She asks if they know each other because he reminds her of someone, swearing, pointing at him, and asking if she's the only one who thought of that, and if Yohyun knows his father. In the next moment, she sees Rierim, which makes her blush and excited, shouting that she is the Empress of the Sword, the same one that Yura mentioned to her mother. She approaches Rierim and asks for an autograph, and the mother asks her not to scare the Empress. The river thinks it must be fate and invites the two for a chat. Everyone heads to a cafe and sits together. Yura's mother asks his name, and he apologizes for not introducing himself earlier. He introduces himself as Kanguri, accountant of Celestial Bori Inkada. Yura is radiant to meet an accountant, and her mother comments that he is just like her husband, thinking they could be relatives. The river notices that the mother has picked up on something and wanted to tell the truth, but can't. Almost jumping out of her seat, the girl asks if he really is an accountant, and he confirms. She wants to know if he can turn her into a collector, and her mother calls her rude. Yuyum laughs and says there's no problem with the question. The girl responds that he said it was okay, but the mother is still irritated, explaining that you can't just turn an ordinary person like that. Collectors can only make contracts with those who already are, and the mother says that's a relief. She thought Riem would agree to turn her into a collector, which infuriates the girl. The mother screams that she has to recognize her limits, accepting what she cannot control. The girl, biting her lip, starts to cry. She runs out while her mother shouts her name, trying again. The mother apologizes for her daughter's display, but Yorian understands it's a phase of age. All the young people think being a collector is the ultimate, but the mother says she only sees the glamour and is worried. But the worst part is realizing that the girl does not have the talent to be a collector. This shocks Yu Hyun. He remembers his childhood, when his mother said he had no talent. Calming down, he asks Ryarim to find Yura, giving them space to talk. As she leaves, Hyun says that no one should give up just because of lack of talent, and the mother agrees. Everyone should dream big, but there's more. She learned that dreams don't come just from wishing, and Rio responds that, even so, she will always be his daughter. She agrees and only wants the best for Yura, but being a collector is difficult. She doesn't want the girl to come out hurt. She wants her to grow up well. The boy agrees, but warns that he should not crush his daughter's dreams, no matter how difficult it may be. Lying down, she asks if she will let the girl go, but Yu Hyun suggests showing her the reality, how dangerous it is. If the girl still doesn't give up, then there's nothing more to do. This confuses the mother. Yu Hyun explains that this means she should proceed aware of the difficulties. She thought the girl's determination was weak. Something simple can change someone's life. And Rio believes that a frank conversation between the two can help a lot. He hopes she believes in her daughter's dreams, at least one last time. No matter how hard it is, she needs to dream big. If Yura chases her dreams, she could end up becoming Yu Hyun of her own life. The mother picks up on Yu Hyun's words. No matter how sinister the path may be, those who go all the way cannot be stopped. He insists. They ask Yura's mother to trust her daughter's dreams. The woman finally gives in, realizing that she may have suffocated her daughter's potential due to excessive worry. She changes the subject and compliments how much he resembles her son, now grown. Even though it was the first time they met, there's an interesting chemistry. The host chuckles awkwardly when the cafe door opens, curious to see who arrived. The two turn around and come face to face with Yura and Rairim, but the girl is still feeling down. Rio asks for permission to speak with Yura privately, and her mother agrees. The boy invites Yura to have a chat, and she, still upset, agrees. He asks her why she wants to be a collector. and she worries if he will laugh at her. He assures her he won't. He swears. She lets go that they always seem so cool and confident, with phenomenal lives. He thinks that's kind of silly, but Riarim reveals that he also had a similar dream. The girl is left open-mouthed. He said anyone can dream. What matters is determination. Then he asks if she would be willing to risk her life for her dreams. She gets confused, and he explains that Riarim has almost gone to the land of the lost several times because of his dream. Yura says she would definitely be willing. Frustrated, she can't answer right away, but Yoo-hyun states that she will have to think about it. She asks if he thinks she can really be a collector. If she has the determination, he believes she can. Smiling, he confirms that she has potential. He thinks that if someone had told him this in the past, his life would have been very different. Back then, he could have encouraged someone and wished for her to change. Above the girl's glowing face, her book shines with enormous potential. That's all she needed. As they say goodbye, Yura thanks them, wishing she could stay longer, but it's time to go. Orion hopes all her dreams come true and is happy to meet her. Yura says she is sure everything will work out. They say their goodbyes, but Yoo-hyun's mother says nothing. Yoo-hyun and Riarim are waiting for the bus. He seems happy, but quickly changes the subject. Soon, someone calls Yura's name, and he turns around. It's Yura's mother approaching. The boy asks what's wrong. Getting up, Yoo-hyun asks Yeren to wait a bit to see what's going on. As he approaches, he asks what it is, and the woman reveals she has something to tell before leaving. She hugs him, praising his effort. This catches Riarim by surprise. He turns red and his eyes well up. He feels he needs to warn her that he is not her son and set boundaries. She continues the hug, but he can't pull away. In the end, he returns the hug, agreeing that he worked hard. As she releases the boy, the mother says she will always cheer for him, and Yoo-hyun thanks her. As she walks away, his only wish is that she finds peace in the days she has left. Since he didn't let that happen in his past life, this time he won't allow his parents to suffer, or for the apocalypse to begin. The scene changes, and we see a bottle of ink spilled on a table. Someone screams in disbelief upon seeing something unexpected, watching the three idiots being defeated by Yorin and Riarim. It's Jim Pong, furious about the plan that went awry. He only has one last trick up his sleeve, but he doesn't want to use it because he's afraid he can't handle it. Refusing, he shouts that he can't do it and shuts down the system. Someone behind him asks what he can't do, startling the crazed man. Turning around, he sees a little fairy named Argyle questioning his presence in the library. She's there to find out what Jim Pong is up to, and if he completed the task she assigned to him. The voice from beyond is horrified to hear the fairy say he did not complete the mission. She comments that she is disappointed, thinking he is untrustworthy. Jim Pong tries to argue, but the fairy shows she is very sad about his actions. He defends himself by saying he would never do that. Gaia then makes a psychotic face, asking if he is saying she is lying. At that moment, Jim Pong is crushed by a gravitational force that makes him kneel. He falls to the ground so hard that it cracks, and he asks how she is doing this. In the library, the fairy explains that he lost control over the place since he was hired. Until he becomes a lord, he has no control and could very well die. There in the safest corner. Releasing him, Gaia says she is a generous lady and will give him another chance to deal with Ken Yuri. He will also receive special support. Trembling, Jim Pong asks if that's really what she wants. Gaia affirms positively, saying she wants a story battle, wagering her libraries. Nervous, Jim Pong says that a battle against the Sword Empress is impossible, but the fairy insists that he will have a worthy collector. There is a collector in the department who has been secretly gaining strength. The divine spirits will go crazy for a collector capable of defeating the Empress, and this gives Jim Pong a boost. Back at Suri's company, we see a table full of cotton swabs and materials. It was Yam who modified the sword he acquired with Irin, and still hasn't unlocked all of its power. He starts engraving some mana circuits onto the blade. The sword glows, releasing a raw energy, transforming from an ancient relic into a piece of magical engineering. Besides gaining 100,000 points, he also acquired the history of the recorder. This was the true form of the ancient relic, an absurd amount. Of powerful statistics appears, so many that it's hardly worth mentioning. But the sword still has locked abilities that Yoyon cannot access. A description doesn't catch his attention. It seems that the sword has a huge ego, and he gets annoyed. The weapon starts trembling in his hand, as the sword screams with joy for finally being free, scaring Urim and his little creature. Looking down, a little head appears with a little book on top, shocking Yoo-hyun as much as I was at seeing this scene. This was not just any sword, it had its own personality. It reminded me of that manhwa about the boy who hears the voices of swords, you know? The sword asks who its master is, and Yuri introduces himself as Yuri. The girl, shocked, asks if he is a seller, thinking he's going to sell her. He replies that in fact he wants to use her, which makes the little girl mega curious. Changing the subject, he asks her name. With an adorable face, she says she forgot her name because she slept so much, and asks him, Rui, to give her a new name. He feels a bit confused, and she explains that if he managed to wake up there, he might be talented enough to name her too. Looking closely at the weapon, he remembers his little owl, which was also white, and names the girl Beacrian, which means white lotus. She loved the name and accepted it, emanating positive energy. She announces that now he is her master and transfers some abilities. Ori, one is from a story that was forgotten and gains the title of recorder. As her story goes to the sword, she lets out a scream that startles Yo-Yo Hyun. He asks what happened, and she questions what it means to be reincarnated. This question catches Yo-Yo Hyun off guard. Shocked, he realizes that she read his past because of the contract they made and starts to stammer. She listens to him attentively as he decides to tell the truth. After all, he had no reason to hide anything. After everything is explained, she asks if he knew about her existence in the future, and he replies that he did, but nobody knew she had an ego. The girl says that thanks to his ability, he managed to wake up there completely unlike the last owner. She is excited to know that her master was an accountant, full of curiosity about the stories. Smiling, the Yo-Yum says she will see many stories from now on. He extends his finger to do a high five and seal their friendship. Cut to a green field with sunshine, with Riem and Heron. He asks if she is ready, and she confirms. He opens his library, and the crowd begins to arrive, totaling 2,163 spectators. Riem greets the divine spirits and says that after a rest, they will return with a new routine of broadcasts. The spirits become curious. He will show everything gradually and asks for patience. First, he will explain what story they will tell that day. Before he could continue, someone calls him. Turning around, he wants to know who it is. Interrupting the broadcast, Jim Pang appears, requesting a battle of stories against Yo-Yum. The challenge catches the attention of the divine spirits, who go into a frenzy. Intrigued, the White Lotus asks what that is. He explains that it is a battle between the stories of the storytellers. With her there, he asks if everything is okay, but she says that she just looked at the river. She can see and hear her. He explains that the battles focus on the skills of the collector. The winner gets the loser's library. This part makes the sword nervous. It was a risky business. Clenching his fist, he asks why Yo-Yum doesn't accept the challenge, insinuating that he is afraid. Yo-Yum laughs and suggests he could accept, but in the end he doesn't, and laughs in the other's face. The spirits are disappointed and show their fury, but Yo-Yum stands firm. He had the right to refuse. Honestly, the sword questions if it's fine to refuse, but Yo-Yum simply doesn't care. Others accept it out of pride, but not him. Jim Pong criticizes Yo-Yum for not accepting the challenge, questioning if he has no honor. Yo-Yum responds that he is not the one who should speak of honor. He noted that the guy had planned to issue the challenge as soon as the library opened. It was all just a tactic of intimidation. Yuri realizes that he thought he would be embarrassed to refuse in front of the audience, which left the spirits irritated. People were clearly displeased with him. They even wanted to file a complaint against Jim Pang. Trying to calm the situation, Ryam stated that there was no need for a scandal and pretended to be concerned for him. He knows he can't stray too far, or he'll harm his library. Meanwhile, the spirits demand the battle. Donations start coming in. As everyone gets excited to see the duel, Yurim notices this enthusiasm and heads to the cash register. He has a condition, and Jim Pung asks what it is. Ryum says the winner takes everything from the loser. Jim Pung is surprised, but soon believes that Yurium has fallen into a trap. The boy thinks it's a great offer, and the other, laughing, confidently accepts, saying he suggested it and can't back down. Thus, the deadly battle is set. All this leaves the little fairy super intrigued and excited. She was already curious about how this master of ceremonies was famous. Quickly, he is proving to be much better than she thought. Seeing him uncomfortable with the situation and ignoring the others would be a disaster for her work, but now everything is calm as he has become a coveted target. The fairy thinks she could devour him. Cut to Rierim, looking worried, asking if Yo-Yun will be all right. He replies that he's doing this because he knows everything will turn out fine, and it's a chance to show the power of his sword. Ryam asks if she is worried about him. She hesitates, and he reassures her. Some divine spirits are also questioning his actions, especially this risky bet. White Lotus complains that he doesn't even know what's going on the other side. He is completely crazy to go against an entire department alone. The Master of Ceremonies explains that, as he mentioned earlier, those who think they know everything must be deceived. She asks what this has to do with the situation, and he responds that they are all arrogant. He confirms that he made this bet intentionally, as he has a plan to defeat everyone at once. The sword calls him a psychopath. He thanks her for the courtesy, and she considers him crazy. The system appears announcing that there are 5 minutes left until the battle begins. He grabs his little owl and thanks her, then promptly throws her out the window. The small creature flies away with determination. Eren asks if she can go now, eager to see the stadium before the fight, but Yohyun needs to discuss something with her first. Curious, she looks at him, wondering what he has in mind. Jim Pung is full of confidence for victory, even knowing that his opponent is an empress of the sword. The guys were so presumptuous that even she wouldn't be able to take down the collector he received for this occasion. And to think that the department assigned someone so powerful to him that pumped him up, believing the department recognized his skills. If not, they would never have given him such a strong opponent. With 1 minute left before the combat begins, the announcer calls for the collector. He seems a bit demotivated, but he ultimately obeys. Game Pong, it's your time! The two teams enter the arena and the crowd erupts in applause. The audience is in celebration, all hyped up, but if you look closely, it seems like everyone is a mannequin. The author was definitely too lazy to finish the designs. Pim Pum tells the kid to go fight, but the boy isn't in the mood to be ordered around. He was going anyway, and that annoys him. The voice from beyond is pissed off, but tries to stay calm because winning the battle against the Master of Ceremonies is crucial. The collector begins to talk about the Empress of the Sword and how excited he is. He wonders what it would be like to cut her, shouting, Jim Pum. Warns that she is arriving, and a silhouette appears in front of the collector. The expression of the voice from beyond is enough to make anyone tremble with fear. He is shocked, and his expression says it all. It seems the fairy was also surprised when looking at the system's screen and let out a sigh. The collector looks at his opponent and asks what's going on. In front of him is the Master of Ceremonies with the sword in its sheath, smiling confidently. The two are in an arena, just staring at each other, with no sudden moves before the fight. The test dummies are watching. Some look frustrated with the scene. The next image confirms they are avatars of divine spirits, and the one speaking is Satan himself. The Jimpum collector asks if it is allowed for a cashier to fight in the place of the collector, and he answers that there are no rules preventing that. In the end, it doesn't matter. Even if Yu Yun caught him by surprise, it's a great opportunity to get rid of the boy. He tells the collector to eliminate Yuri, but the collector says he was already going to do that. No need to repeat the same old line. White Lotus asks if it is really okay to do this, but Yuri doesn't seem worried at all. The sword warns that this guy is no ordinary one as it grabs its book for a read. Yu Yun thinks there's nothing to worry about, but when he opens it, he receives some very bad news. Those powers are not normal. The guy is none other than Jack the Ripper, a serial killer who will appear in the future eliminating collectors. In his reality, no one ever discovered Jack's identity until the end of time. He was brought down by two after becoming the target of the killer. Drawing the sword, Yu Yun realizes he needs to eliminate this threat soon, before innocents get hurt. Tagram is involved in this, just like in his past life. He is sure they have some connection to the apocalypse. Eren is in a room watching the fight. She is extremely nervous, thinking she should be fighting there. If anything happens to Yuri, she will never forgive herself. We return to the moment when he tells her not to go, and she explodes, complaining that it wouldn't make sense for him to fight in her place. Yu Yun tries to explain that this fight is his, and she doesn't need to get involved, but she insists that as a collector, he should be fighting. And Yuri says that if he were a normal cashier, that would be fine, but that's not the case. This does not convince the girl. Yo-Yum realizes that she is only concerned, but doesn't believe in his potential. Even thanking her for the worry, he knows that she is tense because she thinks he will lose. Nervous, she admits this is true, and Riam trusts her, but she is unable to be rational. Deep down, she can't believe in him. Suddenly, the boy places his hand on her head, surprising her, while telling her not to worry. He assures her that he is not as weak as she thinks, but she is so red that she can't think straight. Confident, he vows to prove that her anxiety is unwarranted and that everyone who laughed at him was wrong. Back in the present, she admits that she is still nervous, but she promised to believe in the storyteller. The battle is finally about to begin. The scenery changes completely. Several ancient buildings emerge around Yo-Riam, mimicking Shumatsu no Valkyria. He is in an area that resembles the Whitechapel district in London. White Lotus calls out to Yo-Riam, urging him to focus. Jack has simply disappeared. A second later, he is in front of them, but vanishes again, probably using camouflage. From above, we see Jack on top of one of the buildings, thinking about how to eliminate Yo-Hyun. As he plans, Yo-hyun turns to face him, catching him by surprise and breaking his disguise. Jack wonders if he was noticed, but thinks it must be just a coincidence. Trying to regain his composure, he starts to devise a new attack, but Yo-hyun turns away again, shaking the creature's confidence, making him think that Ryum is seeing through the disguise. The small fairy watching asks if he shouldn't be confident in the camouflage. The question makes Jack nervous, telling her to shut up because he will handle this his way. Even if Yorion discovers where he is, he won't be able to do anything if attacked from a blind spot. He believes that Yo-hyun won't be able to block a strike from behind, but Yo-hyun turns to face him again. With a simple move, he dodges Jack's attack, leaving the kid even more insecure. How did he do that? He hides in the shadows again while Yuri just watches the fighter retreat. From Yuri's perspective, we realize he's seeing Jack because a book is shining on the kid's head. The White Lotus asks how he's able to see the kid, and Yang replies, "Oh, he has his ways." Realizing that Jack knows Yuri can see his camouflage, she asks what he's going to do now. He says he's going to act with a leap like a superhero. Then he charges at the assassin, who now looks like someone who's seen a ghost. Jack even tries to block Yang's attack, but his expression shows he isn't happy at all about being seen. His expectations just went out the window. Desperate, Jack screams, asking how Yang found him. Yang quips, "Look, hiding isn't going to help, right?" Jack gets mad and shouts that he isn't just the kid that hides. Suddenly, he disappears from Yang's view and reappears ready to deliver a final blow. Aaron screams in desperation as the dagger approaches, and Jack yells at Yuri to go to hell, but the guy dodges it easily. The two exchange a quick glance, and Yuri just smiles. Soon after, Jack is already far away, and Ryo asks if he's done, raising the sword confidently. Yuri says it's his turn now. In the stands, Yuri's owl flies near the divine spirits. It lands on the wall and listens to the audience's comments. Despite being impressed with the master of ceremonies, they still think he is weak. A magical circle appears next to the owl, observing the spirits. The master of ceremonies hears the chatter through the owl, and still hears the crowd belittling him. Man. And his skills are quite impressive, nothing less than we expect from this gift. But in reality, the divine spirits believe he is still weak compared to the other collector, and that only encourages him. It was the perfect chance to show that things are very different from what they think. He advances to attack, preparing himself. Jack tries to guess from which side the sword will come, but he's a bit lost. Suddenly, something catches his attention. Trying to think quickly, he dodges one of Yang's strikes, but it wasn't a sword at all. A second ago, he had a sword in his hand, and now he's holding a spear. While Yoo-hyun launches the strikes, Jack evades them all with almost superhuman agility. He takes a few scratches but manages to take control of the situation with that shift in posture. Soon, he is getting the hang of the attacks and the weapon's reach. Now it's time to take the fight seriously, and the river jumps, ready to attack Jack from above. But Jack quickly realizes he won't reach him. Jack yells at Yoo-hyun, calling him an idiot, as he's about to be stabbed before the spear arrives. And it's no surprise when the spear hits the kid's shoulder, catching him off guard and making him drop a blade. He looks at the wound in shock and asks how Yoo-hyun did that. Yoo-hyun says he isn't seeing the whole picture. His failure to foresee the attack was obvious. The spear had grown and was now at Yoo-hyun's height. Yelling, the boy calls Yoo-hyun a cheater, while the voice from beyond criticizes his skills. Losing his composure, he tells Yoo-hyun to shut up and charges forward. All he wants is to get close enough to Yoo-hyun and eliminate him painfully. He is almost there. A blue light shoots from Yoo-hyun and hits Jack in the face. He is stunned, realizing that Yoo-hyun now has the shield. He finally understands that the river hasn't changed weapons. His weapon has transformed, and boom, the thing turns back into a sword, and the river goes for the vertical cut, but Jack blocks with his daggers. Immediately, the river prepares for another vertical cut, and Jack positions himself to block again. The weapon changes once more, and now it's an arrow that strikes the ground, dangerously close to Jack's legs. Yoo-hyun swings, and by then, it has already turned into an axe while Jack crouches. Yoo-hyun lands a blow, causing an explosion at the moment of impact. Jack is horrified. How can such a weapon exist, man? And even more, how does he manage to wield all that like this? The guy really is a storyteller. The divine spirits wonder where he got that from. One of them figures it was from paradise, or perhaps from pandemonium. Rumors swirl, but one heard that deep darkness and Miguel appeared to him. Satan, listening, is impressed by how Yoo-hyun draws attention. But he's upset because they're calling him Deep Darkness instead of his name. Jack really took a hit. He's on the ground, bleeding with a hole in the wall behind him. While Ryo charges for a final attack, catching Jack completely by surprise, that miserable Jack reacts. dodging away and saving his skin by a hair from the strong blow. The fairy asks what he's doing, which only irritates him more. He tells them to shut up, that he will handle this. Getting up, Jack gives credit for having him cornered, but left his guard down. Suddenly, strange letters appear all over his body. He's transforming into some monster, growing and emitting electricity. The fairy gets excited, saying she didn't expect him to use this against a low-level counter like Yuri. As he charges up, Jack yells that it won't get any easier for Yuri. With impressive speed, Jack leaps and starts moving through the area he's created with unbelievable agility. The divine spirits are shocked, unable to comprehend this, and not knowing anyone that fast. He appears by the side of Yoru's face, laughing, and shouts that it's too late to regret what he did. In the next moment, Ryo asks who he's talking about. Himself. He grabs the collector's arm and throws him against the wall with absurd speed, causing an explosion at the moment of impact. Jack, stunned, looks like he's about to faint, and the fairy, watching, can't believe what she's seeing. Ryo could have finished off the collector much earlier if he'd known. The fight would be so tedious. On the ground, Jack, unable to move, is incredulous about his little defeat. He screams, asking what the hell is this? Yo-Yum was supposed to be his story, the main character of all this. Urian shouldn't have been more than a sacrifice to enhance his own glory. How could he have lost with the blade at the boy's neck? It's clear that Yo-Hyun was drunk on his power and lost due to his own pride. Then Ryo looks at who defeated him. That was the true winner, exclaims. I am the true Yo-Hyun of this stage! The boy almost whispers, begging for mercy, but it was already too late. Raising his sword, Urion reveals that this was the power Jack always underestimated, and it's just blood splattering. As Urion celebrates his victory, the divine spirits, completely astonished by the fight, are equally shocked by Yuri's win. He sheaths his blood-stained sword as the system announces his victory. The area will soon disappear. Someone starts to clap timidly, but they are quickly followed by a crowd ecstatic over the battle. Yoo-Hyun starts to laugh, seeing that the crowd is enjoying his performance. Rihanna, emotional, watched the whole fight. The boy really took down a powerful collector. On the other hand, she is saddened by not having believed in him until the end, but she promises to change that and that she will never replace him. It sounds like a love declaration because she calls him her light. Miguel is shocked and thinks that Ryo is incorrigible. With this defeat, the divine spirits will surely want to sponsor Yoo-Hyun. He smiles, anticipating even greater feats from him. It seems he has accepted that he will never control someone like Yu-Yu. We return to Jimpang's library where Galo is shouting, curious about his defeat. She screams, demanding that he say something, but at that moment he is being strangled by the chief's power, gasping for air. The collector she gave him was defeated by a cashier, and the situation is more than complicated. He protests, saying that someone was behind this. Someone must have helped. Gale interrupts him, saying there are no excuses. The situation is already set, there's no going back. She needed to find someone to blame, the person who caused all this mess. Desperate, he pleads for mercy, but his face is pale with rage. He failed the mission, and there is no forgiveness. What he says doesn't matter. The losses he caused were so great that he can't make amends, even if he lived for it. The desperation in the voice from beyond only makes Argaio hate him even more. He lost the rights to his library because of the defeat. The best option would be to eliminate him, because his life would be much worse if he remained alive. Desperate to understand how things got to this point, that miserable Kenny knew he would win from the very beginning. He knew everything. And Jim was never the hunter in this story. Tears stream from his eyes as he sees his end approaching. The storyteller disappears into the shadows after being eliminated by Argayu. A noise appears, and the fairy, with a face of disgust, sees the river opening the door. She quickly changes her expression and starts introducing herself cheerfully, and Yoo-Hyun introduces himself as well. She says she loved watching his fight because it was amazing, while he pretends to be embarrassed, not knowing how to respond. Yoo-Hyun asks where Jin is, but with a sad look, she replies that he does not exist because he lost the storytelling battle. He was destined to be eliminated from the very beginning. Yo-Yum finds this strange. Although they had bet their lives, he never asked for Jin to die. Israel doesn't know this because it was her first battle. Stopping the charade, he seriously asks if she can stop talking nonsense. She turns around, asking if she heard wrong, and the river replies no. She heard just fine. He wants her to stop spewing nonsense because she got rid of something that was his, and that is wrong. Gale, even when wrong, is still superior and deserves respect, but Yorion thinks she abused her power. In a friendly way, she admits admits to making a mistake but will make up for it. The fairy transfers 800 points to Yorion and asks if that is enough to resolve the issues. Yorion observes and quickly figures out who she is, a psychopath who laughs at deaths in front of her. She used manipulation. Her image causing a massacre in a challenge was unbearable. The way she looked at the bodies was that of someone who didn't care. Confirming that he received the points, Yoyum says it seems to be enough to cover his loss. Excited, she says Yoyum knows how to flatter her and considers herself benevolent. Provocatively, Yoyum asks if she knows anything. There are rumors that a certain department is in contact with the Exodus. This catches Argyle's attention. The Exodus controls the world of Miki, thriving on pain and suffering. It is highly likely that the Pentagon department has connections with them. Even in his past life, when everything was closed off and they pretended nothing happened, Gale questions why he is saying this, as someone might overhear and think the Pentagon is allied with Exodus. The River responds that it's just a warning, in case she gets involved, but apologizes for the confusion. He is leaving to reign and will indicate the library that conquered that of Jimpung. Meanwhile, the little fairy, the scene, when Yo-hyun leaves, the true expression of Argyle appears and she is not pleased with the situation. The River realized she is different from Jimpung. Dealing with her won't be easy because she knows how to hide everything about herself and her department. The mere fact that the Pentagon has ties to Exodus says a lot. Creating someone like Jack in secret is enough proof. It will definitely not be a walk in the park dealing with this crowd. But he had an out. Picking up a book, he thinks things will be different this time. At Surium's firm, she wanted him to talk about what he planned to do. She scolds him because they went out to make money and ended up in a battle of stories. They both apologize, and Surium says she will let it go, since they returned victorious from the skirmish. Then Aaron comments that Ryam was amazing, and Ryam says that his library is now much stronger. He notices that Ryam is really something, and comments on what scares him. Excited, she takes the chance to share a little secret, since he is very curious, and Ryam mentioned it was already late to ask. With a smile on his face, he shouted that it was payday, getting so excited that he blurted out, "I feel the same way when my salary hits my account." Aaron became curious, but the answer was quite obvious. He suggested she check the account to see how much she had received. The girl opened her phone and was in shock, expressing surprise and a slight uncontrolled embarrassment. She started shouting for Yu Yun, asking what to do, as she felt incredibly rich. But Yu Hyun corrected her, saying it wasn't quite like that yet. He explained that, after Aaron's fame, they secured several contracts that totaled 200 million. The two were so excited about the money that they were already dreaming of some simple renovations in the office. The River and his two partners watched the scene with a disappointed look. Due to the simplicity of the Lados girls, I wanted to know why they acted that way. Rio explained that the issue was that they grew up in poverty. The Bacoa office was now vibrant, both of them in complete euphoria. But Rio questioned whether they couldn't just buy food at the store, while they believed it was something only for the wealthy. The scene changed, but it was still in the office. Surium seemed completely bogged down with her tasks, and Royam realized she was rushing because of the interviews and offers that Rihanna was receiving. He also had work to do, but the system notified him about a message from Celestial Body that he hadn't even seen. The system informed him that he had been promoted and was now a lord, receiving some rewards. This made him very happy. He was finally being recognized for his work. On the other hand, upon checking more notifications, he noticed that he was still not officially a lord. He needed to undergo a ceremony that he hated. He decided that, even so, since he would have to go soon, it would take longer because of the ceremony. Noticing that Yo-Yoan was distracted, Ririn asked what was wrong, and he mentioned the promotion. She congratulated him, broke into a big smile, and he thanked her, but he also asked how her work was going. She said she had already dealt with a lot, but there was still much left, which overwhelmed him just to hear. Rio, who should also be busy, replied that everything was fine, but he needed to connect with business people now. Taking the opportunity, he asked if she had time to discuss this. She agreed and asked what he wanted. Rio then invited her out on a date, leaving her completely shocked to the point of dropping her pen. Outside, he smiled, realizing he was being clever, truly bold to do that in front of Ririn. He commented that he thought she was too calm and that's why he decided to tease her, and that the outcome was better than he had imagined. Changing the subject, he asked if she was having trouble finding someone to handle the negotiations, and she confirmed that she was. Hyun was eager to help. He knew it was complicated for a lesser-known company like hers, To gain trust and close partnerships, that's why he invited her out with an accountant appearing in person. Not even the big companies would give less attention. She smiled, thanked him, and mentioned that there was a company she was considering, but there was a problem. She asked him to listen carefully, and he focused entirely on her. They stopped at a cafe and she began to tell him that her family was doing fine financially, but they had their difficulties since she grew up without a mother. Everything was going well until her brother, who was a collector and one of the best, died in an accident, and the trouble began. After that, problems started to arise. Many collectors, including members of important clans, hurt and sued her brother. With him dead, the family was in trouble, and Yoryun began to reflect on this situation, feeling the injustice in the air. Surim believed in her brother's goodness. He was a very good guy, valued family, but she could see that something was very wrong. Yoryun asked if she didn't think that mental domains should be respected, and the girl confirmed. This made the master of ceremonies realize that it was the same situation he had experienced with the old man from the association, and that's why her family had been sued. He began to think that her brother's death might not have been a mere accident and decided to investigate. Someone called Surim's name, and she recognized the voice, feeling startled. An old man greeted her, happy to see a familiar face. She responded to the greeting. The old man lamented her departure from the clan, but rejoiced at learning that she had opened her own agency. At least the girl was making some money. He asked who the old man was, and she explained that he was a gentleman from her previous job, John Quincy Silk. He dismissed Yoryun, saying that he looked weak, and asked if Yoryun was really hiring a collector. Surprised, the old man praised the girl, acknowledging that most personal agencies don't last long. Teasing him, she asked if she would be able to handle the collector, but Yoryun interrupted her, calling the old man by name. He approached and introduced himself, wanting to know if he was up to date with her agency. Yoryun politely introduced herself, but the old man who didn't know him questioned his position, and Ryam asked him to disappear. This infuriated the elder, who wanted to know how he dared to speak like that, thinking the boy had no manners. One, to be honest, wanted to hit the old man but restrained himself because of Surium. Even with the old man's hostile attitude, the girl stood up, asking Yohyun to stop provoking him. However, Kwang Seok was so angry that he began to insult the boy. The master of ceremonies looked at Surium and thought that offending her was the same as offending him. He didn't want anything to happen. The old man then asked what their relationship was, insinuating that there was something between the two. He said that if he had known her talent, he could have done business with her. Laughing, he said that would have been quite fun. Then the old man was surprised by a punch thrown with full force. The old man was launched backwards, and his companions panicked. The two men questioned if Yu-hyun was crazy. While the old man was on the ground like a rag, he got up shouting that the boy was a criminal for attacking a civilian. As a collector, he would pay for that. Alone, he asked one of his men to call the special unit, and Ryun shot back that the unit could come, but that Ryun was not a collector, so he didn't break the law. Confused, the old man questioned, and Ryun seized the opportunity to ask how he planned to punish an accountant with collector's norms. With a trembling voice, the Yao, old man was stunned to realize that the boy was an accountant, and Ryun asked him to continue with what he was saying. The guys began to surround him, saying that even being an accountant, he had crossed the line, and if he didn't stop, they wouldn't just stand there. And Ryun asked if that was really what they wanted. They could use their weapons, but as soon as they did, they would be exterminated. Ryun had a terrifying expression as he threatened those idiots. He ordered the three to leave, before he wiped them off the face of the earth, and they were horrified. The three fled like clowns while Yo Ryun watched the scene. Orion was shocked and asked what he thought. He was quite reliable, right? With a sigh of relief, she commented that she couldn't stop him. Returning to the conversation, she wonders why he chose her. Meanwhile, the poor employee is there cleaning up the mess left after the outing, and the girl ends up being blacklisted by the clans, unable to collaborate with anyone. Rio asks the question, did she hold a grudge against her brother? At first, the girl confirmed, but then realized he wasn't that bad. He just hung out with the wrong crowd. He asks if she's going to accept this injustice quietly, and she retorts, what can I do against those people? He agrees that her concern makes sense, and that's why he wants to help, shocking the girl greatly. Smiling and getting up, he says he wants to turn this world upside down and show these idiots that they are completely wrong. It may seem crazy now, but soon it will make her change her mind. He invites her to start looking for partners right away, extending his hand. He offers to help, leaving the girl momentarily speechless, but it didn't take long for joy to take over her. Holding his hand, she comments that he might end up regretting it, but he is already the type who acts without thinking. The scene shifts to an old man thanking for the deal. Leaving the location, Suryeom is surprised that the deal worked and that it was thanks to Uriom, but he only did what he could. The frustrated girl asks why he still needs her as a manager if everything is under control. He replies that it's for them to grow together. Looking at her, Ririn says that everyone is in the same boat. Despite her weaknesses, she is very strong in other areas. Now it was time to laugh. If they kept delaying, Ririn might start talking non-stop. He smiles and asks if they need to buy something for her. Back at the office, Yohyun waits outside. Shouts echo from inside the room. One of the girls warns the other not to mess up the makeup. Keeping their heads held high, the two exit, and Rayram shines dazzlingly in her dress. She asks Yohyun what he thinks of her look. The master of ceremonies says he always knew she was beautiful, but today she's even more so. Now it's time to leave. As they enter the building, Rierim comments that the place is enormous, and Riem states that it is one of the largest magazines in the country. Upon reaching the reception, he informs her that they are there for an interview, and the receptionist directs them to the 7th floor. Riem thanks her while Hiron tries to maintain his seriousness without showing off too much. This leaves the receptionist perplexed, and Suram ends up going his own way, as he had more things to do. The two exit, and the receptionist is still blushing. I relate, I also fear beautiful women. When they arrive in the room, a woman is already waiting for them. She asks who Yurin is, and he introduces himself as Rarim's manager. Happy to see that Rarim has another manager besides Surim. She introduces herself as Shingaryong, a friend of Surim. Starting the interview, she mentions that they are doing something that no one has done in years and asks about the purpose of cleaning mental domains, and where no reason is needed. As a collector, she does what she must. The interviewer asks about her future plans and how she feels being called the Empress of the Sword. The girl answers, but we don't hear what she said. It seems to excite the interviewer, who realizes everything is fine. Changing the subject, she looks at the host and says she heard something recently. She asks about an accountant who was with the humans, something in common for them. She mentions that someone gave up there to become a collector, and the host realizes she knows it's him. He admits that he is the cashier about whom the rumors are circulating. Even more excited, she says she had the impression he was the famous seer. She apologizes if her question was rude, but a question haunts her. He can answer as long as it's not something problematic. She wants to know why they clean mental domains. He says it's to gain popularity quickly, but she questions whether that is really the only reason. Sensing the situation, the boy says it doesn't matter. What matters is that he has a greater goal, something few can see. Standing up, he says the interview ends here. After all, the true star is the Empress of the Sword, not him. The interviewer takes the hint and agrees to wrap up the interview, joking with Aaron. She says she would love to be in a relationship where she could meet Yurin, which makes Aaron jealous. Back in the lobby, they encounter Serino, who greets them. She asks how the interview went and mentions that the interviewer is quite playful. Ion says everything went well, even though Rarim's face says otherwise. Looking around, he notices the place is crowded and noisy. It seems like someone famous is around, a collector with 2 women as security. The crowd is in a frenzy over his presence. White Lotto wonders what the problem is with this guy, but Riem doesn't care at all. Riem tries to convince her to leave, but she is so excited that she doesn't listen. And Riem tries to get her attention, and she, surprised, is confused about what happened. Curious about the situation, he grabs the collector's book to see what he is doing that attracts so much attention from the women. One of his features is called Casa Nova, and he wonders what the hell that means. The guy must just have an incredible way with words. The collector walks toward Yu-Hyun smiling, but interrupts before he realizes he is distracted with the book. He introduces himself to Rarim as Juki Unso, but she seems completely oblivious. Unso says he has heard a lot about her and starts to flirt. Rarim's expression is one of malice, making the master of ceremonies realize that even the guy's charm didn't affect her. Curious, Lotus wants to teach the guy a lesson, and O-Rium also wants to intervene before he gets closer. He positions himself between them, emphasizing that Rarim is uncomfortable with his presence, introducing himself as her manager. The collector scoffs, saying it's absurd for a mere manager to be in his way, claiming to be famous. He insists that this is a joke, stating he doesn't want that guy near his collector since she doesn't like the conversation, making her blush a little. The man laughs, saying there's no woman who doesn't like him. This only makes Eo Hyun and, White Lotus even more irritated and ready for action. Before they can do anything, Heron intervenes, asking him to stop because he is being a nuisance. He says he will, but continues to insist on inviting her out. She apologizes but refuses. She doesn't have time for this nonsense. He keeps insisting, but Heron pushes his hand away from her chin, asking him to back off. This makes the guy serious, smiling again. He says he tried to be nice, but it seems that's not working. As he takes off his gloves, he throws them at her, leaving the girl completely confused. He then challenges the Sword Empress to a duel. The crowd that was part of the Collector's fan club was already buzzing with the idea of seeing their idol jumping into the contest, expecting nothing less than a victory. Lotus can't help but doubt whether it's right to let the Collectors harm each other, but Yoo-hyun replies that the government doesn't care. It's better than them pulling scams in the shadows. Ryeon doesn't seem the least bit shaken to accept the challenge. This just excites Yoo-hyun. He shoots her a look, making it clear that the choice is hers. She seems totally cool with the idea of entering the fight. Heron smiles, jokingly saying she's going to accept the duel with the annoying guy. In this new house, the Collector is all hopeful, thinking victory is in his grasp just because Ryeon is ranked below him. Because, the newbie there doesn't stand a chance against him, who's part of the Raisiade clan. He's daydreaming about taking her down quickly and putting her in her place with monstrous ease. The river whispers to Ryeon that she can simply postpone her confrontation with the guy for 3 days. This leaves the dude somewhat confused, thinking that in 3 days her situation wouldn't change at all. He ends up accepting her conditions. As he takes a step back, he suggests that the fight could take place at the association's location, guaranteeing that he'll wait for her in 3 days. Still holding his book, Yo-yum is aware that the guy is from the Raisiade clan, but he also knows how he's going to find a way to crush the guy's pride. The interviewer appears from behind, curious about what's going on, and gives a somewhat awkward smile. She makes a disgusted face and Yuri asks if she knows him already. She confirms, saying he makes her super uncomfortable with those looks. It was clear she wasn't falling for his skill. She also drops the information that it happens. Rumors that he uses the clan's power to mess around, and she asks what he did. Rio said that the guy challenged Rayram to a duel, and they accepted. The girl was even shocked by this news. It left her worried since the guy was strong. But Yuri calms her down, saying he has a foolproof plan to knock the guy out. It was just a matter of thinking a little. If the Sword Empress could defeat the guy after the interview, it would be a huge scoop. She asks if he's just trying to pull the rug out from under the situation, but the boy replies that if she can draw more media attention to them, he'll be the one who's grateful. The woman sighs, saying she had already noticed he wasn't normal, but now he's proving to be much crazier than she thought. Nevertheless, she says she will do what he asked and that they will meet again. He thanks Yo-yum for letting the girl participate in the duel, asserting he only did it because he believes she will shine. She questions why he delayed the duel for 3 days, and he said they need to turn this into a massive event for everyone to keep an eye on. Journalists were already crowding in front of Suryam's office, wanting to interview Ryeram about the duel, while the girl was already feeling exhausted. Garyam really brought amazing visibility to them. The master of ceremonies knew that even if Ryeram was known among spirits, the common folks had no idea who she was. They needed that exposure. Still, she was all calm, just sitting and practicing her culture amid the chaos about what was going to happen in the duel. She still had the potential to be much better than her former self, so she wouldn't let them replicate her peak. From Yuri's perspective, they needed her to be stronger than ever, reaching her maximum potential. This battle would be crucial for her to grow even more in strength and fame. And then the long-awaited day of the duel finally arrived. We see the Colosseum where the battles between Yuri and Jack took place. At least, I think so. Snack vendors were already in full swing in the arena. The stands were packed with everyone eager to see the fight happen. It was clear that this battle was highly anticipated. The place got so crowded that even Suryam felt a bit scared. Rai asks if she's nervous, and she lets loose with her feelings, surprised at all the buzz surrounding this fight. The entire media attention that the tall janitor had garnered impressed him, but it was also quite possible that it was because of the Collector. These battle events weren't very common, so people would get fired up with excitement when one occurred. Suryam began to feel a wave of nervousness, and the guy asks if she wants to go to the bathroom. She shouts back that it's just a stomach ache, but the place was packed. Even members of the trendiest clans and mega-famous collectors were there. You can't blame the nervous ones. Lotto's comments that the guy doesn't seem nervous, and he simply replies that he wasn't showing it, but he was almost in hard mode. This fight wasn't his. It was the Empress of the Swords, and even while meditating, she also seemed nervous. 3 minutes to the duel, she opens her eyes, in reflection, and Ryan asks if she's ready. Ryan stands up and nods, but there's a hint of excitement in his tone. He smiles slightly, but the next moment, he punches her in the head for no reason. She starts to cry and asks why he did that, but he quickly insists it wasn't meant to hurt. He asks if she's less nervous now, and it seems to work wonders because her nerves finally disappeared. Still, she complains that he should have warned her, but Yohyun replies that if he had, it wouldn't have had the same effect. Yelling, she threatens that when it's his turn, he'll see what real nervousness is. However, right after, she thanks him for being there with her. The battle hour is approaching. The system shouts for the fighters to enter the arena and informs that the divine spirits are in the pile. There were already 4,500 spectators eagerly awaiting the clash, cheering for the Empress of the Sword. Both were already in the arena, the scenery shifting, to a place that looked like a forest. The rules were clear. The fight ended if someone surrendered or was knocked out. Monsters would be around, offering points if defeated, each worth a different amount. They had 3 hours to make the decision. If there was no knockout during that time, the winner would be the one with the most points. Killing was considered noob, and anyone who broke that rule was going to regret it. Following the association's norms, the rules were presented amid applause from the crowd. The system announced that the fight could begin. Soon, a giant explosion occurred as the match started, giving him 150 points. The guy was all pumped up and full of energy for this duel. A spectator started cheering for him, while the other wondered what the Empress was doing. She was standing still, eyes closed, leading him to think she was giving up even before the fight started. It was clear she was focused, with an electric aura beginning to form around her. She finally opened her eyes, and now the real battle was about to begin. She was truly ready. The artist turned to see what happened and wondered about the sound he heard. Something was coming his way. Before the guy could grasp the situation, Yurin was already in front of him, sword in hand, ready to make sashimi. He even blocked the attack, but it looked like he was taking a beating for it. The hatred on his face was frightening, as he thought that this girl had come after him instead of dealing with the monsters. The commentator, all excited, mentioned how the fight began unexpectedly, and there was already a tense atmosphere between the two. An electric dragon appeared, and Rihanna was not playing around. Her intent was clear. After losing, the artist shouted in disbelief that she underestimated his skills. At that exact moment, his aura began to glow red, like a warning light. The fight between the two was insane. It seemed like two Super Saiyans were beating each other up. It was a surreal scene. The artist, despite being strong, realized he was being pummeled by the Sword Empress, who was a force of nature. Without losing momentum, Hiron delivered a vertical strike so heavy that the ground sank beneath the artist. The crowd gasped at the force of the blow. They knew she was strong, but this was surreal. Hiron had a smile on her face, knowing that what she always wanted was to crush those who didn't see her as a threat. The artist, pale with fear, feeling her power, the goddess was enjoying the sensation of having the freedom to use her strength. She delivers a horizontal smash that flattens everything around. The forest turns to paper, but the artist still resists. A line of blood trickles down his face. He took a hit, but he remains standing. He makes himself as solid as rock. Still in shock, he touches his face, unable to believe he was actually hit. Losing his patience, he lunges at the girl, completely furious. His beautiful face is wounded. With a single movement, Reirim sends his sword flying. The little guy is now disarmed. He only has another blade to defend himself, but it's slippery. Taking advantage of his weakness, she drives her knee into his face, instantly breaking his nose. The guy falls backward, blood gushing, and is completely out of the fight. The girls in the stands are in shock, seeing their idol being taken down like this. He, before fainting, tries to rally, thinking he can't lose to a low-level collector. Analyzing the situation, he thinks he needs to calm down. Otherwise, he won't read her attacks and will come to regret it. He lunges again, determined to attack as if it were the last time. The artist, finally finding an opening, moves quickly, but Reirim gracefully dodges and appears behind him. Furious, the guy realizes she was just messing with him, and then spins to keep his gaze on her, shouting that he won't let this go unpunished. He comes at her with everything, but Reirim lands a punch that ruins his party once again. Suryam and Urien watch the scene horrified. The kid is getting beaten by the Sword Empress. He starts to stutter that he wants to give up, but she doesn't care and sends another punch. Jerem is determined not to let him surrender, hitting with enjoyment. The girls in the stands begin to lose all respect for the artist, who is starting to look weak. Someone shouts from the stands, asking why no one is calling the fight, but Reirim doesn't let the guy give up with the final blow that destroys the entire setting. Reirim raises her arms. As the dust settles, she sees that the boy is completely defeated and unconscious. Impressed, the announcer exclaims that the battle is over, crowning Reirim. As the new Empress of the Sword, the battlefield is deactivated, and everyone returns to the Colosseum arena. Gaia, all incredulous and displeased, realizes that the greatest chaos has been to reveal the true strength of the harem. This only made her angrier, and now she figured out that it was me and Riem who gave the orders. She wants to tear Yuri apart, but knows she needs to be smart. The opportunity will arise amidst the crowd. Rairinha is greeted by Surium, who asks if she's alright, all happy for her friend's victory. Surium praises her and gets emotional while Rairim thanks Yoyum. She calls him and says he was sensational, making her float on clouds and discovering happiness. Feeling all embarrassed, she respects the rule and thanks Yoryun. Someone bangs on the table, weary, saying that the situation is unsustainable. Cut to a meeting room, where everyone is shouting about the Empress of the Sword situation. One person asks what to do, but another is already full of emotion. His name is Lingungo, the leader. Even though it's against his will, he should concentrate, but Lingungo isn't in the mood to talk. He believes the domains shouldn't be opened, honestly, contrary to what the Empress and Ryun think. Back in Suryan's office, she comments that Rayaran has become the hot topic among everyone, while the two exchanged ideas about the food they would buy with the money. Ryun was lost. He realizes the situation and asks what he's thinking, and Rio finally reveals that he made a decision, but the girls are completely confused. He wants to recruit a new collector. He approaches her, sitting on the sofa, and asks when he gave up, but she yells it's him. He tries to explain that it can't just be the two of them clearing domains. The situation is going to get complicated. It's not urgent yet, but get ready soon because everything can change. And when his position rises, it would be great to have a junior just for her. This clearly caught the girl's attention. Her attitude shifts, and now she needs to accept and show how a veteran should act. All excited, she asks if Riem had someone in mind, and he replies not yet. That's not entirely true, recalling past life, but he ended up being eliminated. He clicks on the video linked in the forum and watches the scene of the guy getting screwed over. The dude tried to drop the collector, but didn't survive. While watching, Lotus comments that she didn't think it was real, but is impressed by the footage. Many people say it was irresponsible to give up the blessing, but for Yu Hyun, it's good news. It brought him more attention, and several collectors started dropping their blessings trying to imitate. Lotus asks if that doesn't worry him, but he thinks it would be an interesting story. A collector who dropped his protection and fought for it. The next day, Ryun appears all disappointed and asks if Ryun really needs to go alone. He replies that yes, there are still many reporters at the office door because of her duel, and he needs to sort this out quickly. He activates invisibility and assures her that he will be back soon. The boy easily makes his way through the crowd while the reporters wonder when they will leave. Arriving at the graduation ceremony of the collectors, many people are coming in and out. Lotus is shocked by the number of people, and Yu Hyun comments that the main clan members might be there to recruit. The sword asks if he can find someone competent there. Ryun explains that he is not necessarily hunting for the best collector. After all, the Rairinho wasn't all that great. At first, he thought those with higher ranks were more talented, but there are still hidden potentials he can awaken. Lotus doesn't share this perception, but ends up accepting the explanation, and they set off in search of a collector with potential. The whole day passes, and Lotus is tired from searching with Urim, but they still haven't seen anything interesting. All the collectors he saw were very ordinary. He hoped for at least someone with gold-level potential. Then, something catches his attention and makes him take off running, frightening Lotus, who got left behind. The sword tries to chase after him and calls his name, but he doesn't hear and disappears around the corner. Dazed, Ryun wonders if he found someone. He shouts, asking for a second of her time. Looking at her, he is left speechless. The girl does not seem very happy to have Ryun's attention and what appears above her. He has certain known collectors in mind. Lotto suggests that he use his knowledge of the future to find someone. He says he has several candidates, but it isn't the right time. Some people haven't even awakened yet. And remembering that there will be a competition tomorrow, it would be a good chance to find hidden talent. It's very likely that there's someone interesting there who isn't famous. In the future, a system window appears, catching Yuri's attention and interrupting his thoughts. An unknown person attempts to make a video call with him, and he decides to see who it is. A girl with a demon face appears and asks if he can hear her. When he confirms, she comments that she heard about his promotion to senior. She finds his reaction strange and thought he would react differently, but congratulates him. Suri asks who she is, but he is just as in the dark. Annoyed, he asks the staff to give him some time for privacy. He notices the horns on the girl's head and finally realizes that she is the horned girl he saw at the initiation ceremony. The girl becomes furious and, to be clear, introduces herself as Alicia. He hesitates a bit, thinking she looks really beautiful now, and asks how her accounting career is going. amazing. All excited, she comments that she's been getting help from the veterans in the department and has been working at a place called Outland. The girl thought she had already won, as she managed to get 500 viewers with her library and praises the collector. And Yoo-hyun asks if he is a wicked noble, and she wants to know how he knew that. He gives a detailed description and impresses the other girl at the ticket booth, happy to have guessed the collector's story correctly. He notices that she chose a very interesting archer, but she wants to change the subject. She asks if he has seen any accountants recently. He says he hasn't checked in a while, and she suggests he take a look because something interesting happened. Without giving any more explanations, she says she is busy and ends the call, leaving Yoo-hyun curious about what's going on in the forum. Upon opening the forum, he finds something staring back at him. An accountant attempted to copy Yu, dropped the blessing, and fought with the collector. It's simply breathtaking. 3 colorful books, like a rainbow, and he can't react normally. Normally, a person has just 1 book, but she has 3. This could mean a lot of things, but what exactly? She turns to leave, but Yuri calls her again, approaching. He introduces himself and asks her name, but she warns that if he doesn't leave, she will take him out right there. However, he doesn't seem to listen, all excited to meet someone with such power. But once again, he introduces himself as an office clerk. She asks what he wants, and he states that he wants to make a big, selfless offer. She turns to leave, saying she is busy and doesn't want to be bothered, but he puts a hand on her shoulder. She just turns her head to face Yoru-hyun and warns him that if he doesn't back off, he's going to get hurt. He finally gives up and lets the girl go, realizing he won't get anywhere. Lotus appears and asks if he was there because of that girl. She must be very talented or someone he met in another life. The master of ceremonies says he doesn't know her, but he thinks she must have been famous in her past life. Strange to be a complete unknown. Giving up for now, he tells Lotus that they should head home, but he will meet her again. Lotus asks how, since he doesn't even know her name, holding one of her books in his hand. He tells her not to worry, that a new opportunity will come up. Back at the office, Yoo-hyun asks Sori to look for someone named Kwandia, who recently graduated. She asks if that's the person he wants to recruit. He confirms. She starts crying and throws herself on the floor out of jealousy, but Yoo-hyun explains that he didn't choose her just because she was a woman. Irin doesn't want to hear it. Finally, she shows up, but is shocked by the information she found. Yoo-hyun asks if there was a problem. She explains that the girl graduated down there, even though she was good at fighting. She was terrible in a team. She fought at school and almost got expelled. Wow, she almost didn't graduate. She was really powerful, good enough to beat several from the elite. But because of her personality, no one wanted her. Soryun confirms with Will Ryum if this is really the person he wants, and he replies that it is. He feels that the books about her prove that she might be even stronger than Kangwe Ryarim. Poor thing, Ryarim is going to be replaced. Ryan left there, and Soryun asks if he is going to hire someone now, but he says no. Actually, he left because he needed to find someone. When he arrives, he sees a sign that says, "Waiting at the door, street, food." The guy even thought the name of the restaurant was a bit strange, but of course he went in anyway. Then the name made sense when he found out who owned the place. The door opens and a woman comes out to see who's there. She welcomes Yoo-hyun and asks if he's looking for a table for one, but the guy just wants to know if she is Choi Do-young's mother. She seems a bit surprised and asks how the guy knows Do-young. He replies that he was the one who spoke with her some time ago. As he sits at the table, she asks if he knows where her son is, but he replies no. Then she says, "If you don't know where he is but know his name, that's already proof that he's still alive, right?" Yoo-hyun quickly confirms, yes, Do-young is alive. This news makes the woman relieved and emotional, as if a weight has lifted from her heart. She asks Yoo-hyun's name, calling him savior, but the guy asks her not to call him something so heavy. Then Ryan explains that he's just a storyteller interested in Do-young's family. His mother asks how he met her son, and the boy replies that storytellers are in various dimensions, listening to stories from different planets. In reality, Yuri Yoo-hyun didn't even know what Yoo-hyun's Choi was doing in the other dimension. He just knew he was alive and would come back. In the end, this makes him remember how Do-young had come back looking like a sad person, and his vibe became quite distorted afterward. Maybe because his mother had died in that dimension and the boy became hateful of everything. Do-young's mother interrupts and says that he has always been mature for his age. He was born without a father, but that was never a problem for him. Maybe that's why his mother was always full of excuses. With him, in the end, he was just a child wanting to be one, but she couldn't do anything about it. On the day he disappeared, it felt like her world had completely collapsed. Losing him and feeling helpless was a disaster. She said that if he is really alive, he must be happy there in that other world instead of being with a poor mother. But Yoo-hyun wouldn't let her finish and firmly replied that even if she feels guilty about his disappearance, he is trying hard to come back. He stated that the boy is alive, but he never said he is happy where he is, and he trusts that she understands what he meant. Jeremiah's master knew that even with all the power and wealth in the other dimension, he returned to Earth for very simple reasons. He just wanted to be reunited with his family when he came back. Feeling emotional, Doyum's mother agrees with Yoyum because in the end, they were family, and her son wanted to see her as much as she wanted to see him. She thanks Yoyum, wiping her tears. She still mentions that she is thinking that the boy knows her son too well, and Ryam responds that, in reality, he only heard about him from other people. Understanding the situation, she says she just thought her son had found a friend. Mothers have a really good instinct, thinks Ryam. The woman was almost offering dinner when someone barges in screaming, interrupting the mood. 3 big guys say they already told her to close the doors, but it seems she didn't care at all. Standing up, Doyum's mother questions who they think they are, but the guys start to threaten her. She tries to throw them out, but they keep mocking her, saying no one would want to eat here. The argument is getting heated, but Yoyum remains silent, just watching everything. He really didn't want to do anything, but helping his mother wasn't a good idea, and that makes one of the men furious. Curious, the guy attempts to punch Yoyum, shouting for him to leave. The scene cuts outside the restaurant, and soon, the 3 guys are flying out. They are screaming in pain, with broken limbs, as Yoyum also heads towards them, frantic. One of them screams that a collector cannot harm civilians, but Yohyun replies that this threat is worth nothing. He is not a collector. He drags the 3 away from the restaurant, commenting on how these types always say the same thing, almost like robots. Arriving in a deserted alleyway, Yoo-hyun looks at them on the ground and asks where their office is, but they don't say a word. They think Yoo-hyun is going to apologize, but he just wants to resolve the situation once and for all. He picks up a book from them and, while reading, discovers where the hideout is, leaving the guys in a panic. One of them shouts asking who sent Yoo-hyun to mess with them, but he says he's not going to do anything against them, that his mission is to go to the hideout, cause a mess, and then claim that it was they who revealed the place. The guys still try to threaten Yoo-hyun, but he doesn't care and starts to leave. They begin to curse loudly, and Yoo-hyun turns around and says he loves being called a bastard. What a strange fetish is that, huh? Leaving the alley, he casts a silence spell so no one can hear the screams and curses anymore. Back at the restaurant, Doyum's mother asks if he's okay, and Yoyum replies that he dealt with them easily, especially since he is a storyteller. He also writes a seal to prevent intruders from entering again. She can rest easy. As he leaves, he says goodbye, and the woman thanks him for what he did for her today. Yoo-hyun's goal was to go to the bandits' hideout and finish another mission he had in mind. Suddenly, he hears footsteps running and people shouting that there's an enemy nearby, asking who the unfortunate soul is causing this. He stands still, while everyone who tried to attack him is lying on the ground like garbage cans. Several other men are still standing, and one of them asks how he found that place. He replies that one of their subordinates had told him. They run towards Yoo-hyun with a baseball bat, and the guy shouts how dare he show up there, but Yoo-hyun doesn't even blink. The next instant, he dodges the thug's swing, which hits the ground with such force that it makes a thunderous noise. Yoo-hyun realizes this guy is a collector and concludes that someone big is behind this scheme, someone who must be making a lot of money working for them. Yoo-hyun realizes he's caught a very big fish. Someone shouts to eliminate Yoo-hyun, and the thugs rush at him in a group, but Yoo-hyun counterattacks and takes one down with a kick, leaving the others looking terrified. Another one pulls out a knife, cursing Yoo-hyun, and tries to cut him without much difficulty. Ryo grabs the blade as if it were a broom handle. So calm. The guy is shocked and asks how he didn't cut himself. Taking the knife, we see that Ryo has activated a night combat skill that enhances his physical abilities. He punches the thug hard in the face, knocking the guy out immediately while the others just watch the scene. Ryo then turns to those still standing and gestures for them to come, waving his hand. A middle-aged man with a deep cut on his face is trembling with a metal briefcase in his hand. All the others have been defeated, and one has turned into a human pancake right there. The man asks who Yoo-hyun is, and he says that collectors cannot hurt civilians, but Ryo replies that it's not the first time he's heard that today. The man, terrified, begins to think that Yoo-hyun is a killer collector and wonders if someone sent him after him. Desperate, he screams that he will give everything to Yurin and just wants to be spared. The master of ceremonies, confused, decides to play along. Yurin crosses her arms and waits for the man to hand over his belongings. He opens the briefcase and shows what's inside. Besides cash, there's a notebook that quickly catches the attention of the master of ceremonies, who picks it up. Inside the notebook, he finds evidence of the collaboration of 2 major clans with criminals: the Ro, which is one of the clans, and an even bigger one, the Twilight Curtain. Most of the collectors from this clan were part of the Pentagram department, which indicated that they were also involved. But why would this clan be involved in real estate dealings with collectors? They were incredibly suspicious. Then, Yo-hyun has an idea. What if the goal was to establish a mental dominion in the area they wanted to hide? A mental dominion so secret that even the government didn't know, and a clan trying to monopolize? The master of ceremonies interrupts his own thoughts and asks the man to open the safe behind him, but the guy is so terrified he refuses. Rio notices that the refusal just confirms that whatever is in that vault is really important. He uses his system to teleport the vault to his library, making the thug fall back in shock. Desperate, the man asks where the vault went, but the master of ceremonies changes the subject, stating that he cannot let the thug stand while the others are unconscious. The thug, confused, asks what the master said, but with a quick punch, he is knocked out. In the observation room, Yorio is there, staring intently at the vault he took from the thugs. It seems he doesn't have the strength to open the object without causing a mess, so he begins to think of other options. Remembering his engraving skills, he starts to completely change the configuration of the vault to make it easier to open. Within seconds, the vault opens by itself, and inside is a notebook that says "Top Secret." Reading the content, the main character thinks that this is much bigger than he imagined and wonders how to use this information. The three idiots who got beaten by Yorio in the previous chapter are on their knees begging the boss for mercy. Shouting at them, the boss says that if they hadn't revealed the hideout, that lunatic wouldn't have gone there and wiped out the general. Three men arrive at the gang's hideout, which puts the boss in a panic. It was the superintendent who says he heard what happened. He asks if it's true that the most sensitive information leaked because of an idiot. The gang leader tries to deny it, saying that the master took the vault, but is sure he wouldn't have been able to open it due to the security layers. The superintendent approaches the three idiots and asks if they are the morons who leaked the location. The boss confirms that they are. He waves one hand, blood splatters everywhere, and the heads of the idiots come to rest far from their bodies. They were no longer alive. The boss, horrified, leaves, and the superintendent says he will spare the boss's life because it was his first mistake. The man thanks him. Before leaving, he asks if the boss remembers the intruder's face. The boss confirms, but begins to try to describe the guy. He tries to remember, but the memory is hazy, and he can't describe the guy's face to the superintendent. Realizing what happened, the superintendent explains that the intruder is very skilled and blocked their memories. The vault would have been a piece of cake for him. Now it was time to close all the offices in the region. If anyone talks about what happened today, they will show up again. The superintendent is furious about the audacity of anyone who dared to mess with the Twilight Curtain. He made sure that the intruder would pay for it. Cut to the scene where we see Lotus's face filled with admiration. They are in front of Celestial Body Inc. It's her first time there, seeing two armed soldiers. She asks if they are counters like the Master, but the guys say they are guardians and that their armors are super powerful. The armor varies according to their rank. Meanwhile, he explains everything to Lotus Branca. Suddenly, he feels a yellowish and frightening gaze upon him. He looks up, tries to understand the situation, but cannot see anything and wonders who could be there. The soldiers draw his attention because the promotion ceremony is about to start and they can't be late. He agrees. We see the exterior of Celestial Body Inc. for a moment, and then the smile of an old man who recognizes Yuri. The villainous-looking old man is very interested in Yuri. Someone so entertaining hasn't appeared in the company for a long time. The old man's eyes are shining, and his burning desire has made him very excited. He just hopes that the boy has an interesting enough story to ignite the mixed world. At this moment, the boy feels a chill down his spine and comments to Lotus. She asks if he's nervous. He says he noticed the strange gaze earlier. She confirms that it wasn't just a feeling. She also noticed that look. This surprises Yo-yum. It wasn't just a strange sensation. He starts to think about who might have cast that gaze. His thoughts return to one of the first counters, the CEO of Celestial Body, Junior Anglock. He begins to worry that this guy could one day be his rival, but tries to push that thought away. For now, it's best to ignore him. If that were the case, this guy would be too strong for Yuri. Someone calls Yo-yum, telling him to hurry up. It was Lotus letting him know that the promotion ceremony is about to begin. On stage, there are two accountants. Some recognize the master of ceremonies who renounced his blessing and still managed to get a quick promotion. Almost all the accountants look at Yoo-hyun, who realizes, is he already becoming a target of envy? Everyone seems interested in him, including the CEO of the company. This would have been impossible for the old him. Honestly, he is happy with this new life and wants to keep moving forward. The ceremony ended quickly, leaving Lotus a bit frustrated with the speed of the promotion, but the master was already expecting this and just wanted to get out of there. Lotus complains, asking why why he wants to leave so soon, but the guy just wants to avoid the departments trying to recruit him. The sword connects that the guy is heading back to the old man's library, and, well, there you have it, right? The place is as exciting as watching paint dry. Confused, Lotus wonders what kind of dump that place was. Like, who would want to go back to? A joint like that? He gets there, and at first the old man doesn't recognize him and says, "What? Who are you?" But as soon as the old man realizes, he greets Yoyum and remembers that it's been a month since they last saw each other, like an eternity in the elder world. Yoyun asks how he is, and the old man, all emotional, comments that he heard the boy got promoted. This made Yoyum all awkward, red as a tomato. Of course, changing the subject, the old man drops a hint that he came to remind him of a promise he made. Yorian says he doesn't want to keep calling the old man forever, and the old man agrees, obviously, right? Then comes the bombshell. The old man's name is Galhus. Yorian nearly falls backward. Wait, he's none other than the guard of the Dragon King, you know? Lotus, completely lost, asks who this guy is, as she didn't even know his name. And Ryam, then, feels like the teacher, and explains that many stories circulate in the mixed world and asks if she knows. The divine draconic force. It was the power of the draconic spirits that united various species with 7 dragons, who were the kings. These guys were known as the Dragon Kings, being the fiercest of them all. Born monstrous, they only got stronger over time. Among them, there was only one who was Kakura from the beginning, the White Dragon King. Sharuriel, a failure. He became the guardian of the history of the Dragon King, but he was seen as garbage. He had the bad reputation of being weak, as if he was born to lose, but he didn't give up. With a lot of sacrifice, he reached Redragon through a storyteller, and that was a shame. The dragons didn't like storytellers, thinking they were just observers and worthless. But this storyteller made the dragon become the king, and it was epic. And that storyteller was Galhei, the famous old man. The old man gets all shy with the recognition. But what about Ion? A question comes up about what the hell he is doing in such a tucked-away place. With a little smile, the old man replies that he is there by choice, because those who run without stopping go crazy. And he hears someone bringing up the topic, asking if he should work there when he retires. The old man makes a face like, "Seriously?" But Yu-Hum just jokes, laughing. The old man says that this is a ridiculous question for someone still in the race. The boy with shining eyes says he could still run, and this left the old man contemplative. The master of ceremonies says that age is just a number. Passion is what matters. Galhei gets his mind wandering. His words touch the old man's heart. In this emotional atmosphere, a system window appears. There are only 10 minutes left until the end of the ceremony. Galhei, noticing the issue, understands that it's time to go back. Time flew by with the old man. Thai, master of ceremonies, agrees, but as he goes back, Galhais bids farewell. The old man is happy, wanting more conversations like that with Yu-Hum, just bro talk. And Yu-Hum, feeling all impressed to be with someone so important, is already feeling love bloom. Then, to avoid making noise, Lotus and Yu-Hum sneakily look for the station to go back. At least it's funny to see someone who loves being the center of attention trying to be invisible. But soon comes something that freaks everyone out. A tall woman with dirty red hair on the way. She has an eye patch and ends up scaring Yu-Hum, who froze for a second. With a grim face, she asks if he just came out of the recording room. She had a serious demeanor. When he admits that he did, he takes a look and sees that she has a valuable golden book. She asks about his relationship with the old man, and he replies that yes, the old man is the guy and even knows his name. The woman realizes that he could be the famous King Yuri and gets all excited, as if she had met an idol. She can't help herself and introduces herself as Celestina. She freaks out and asks if it's true that he gave up the blessing to fight with his collector. He confirms, and she gives him a smack on the head, loving the guy's audacity. After they introduce themselves, she says it's incredible to meet him and invites him to her department. He only remembers that he works with storytelling. She laughs and says she called him because he is from storytelling, but it's from the Celestial department. The MC hears the rumors and knows this part is like a VIP club for storytellers, a place where only the brave enter. It seems they only recruit the best. Yo-Yun wants to know why she invited him to such a restricted place. Her answer is pretty straightforward, because I am the boss, and you are not just any box. The offer is tempting, fewer rules and a huge space for him. But what about the river? He thinks better of it and declines the offer. He prefers to follow his own path. She, turning her back, says, I see, you passed. Now she understands why the old man likes him so much. He, a kid, is full of passion, very different from the others. The question is whether a new offer would change his mind. No, he responds, but that doesn't mean we can't work. together. Celestina is intrigued, and he suggests being a freelancer for her. She laughs and says that if anyone else said that, they would get beaten up. But with him, it seems more fun and a good deal. But of course, it won't be for free. Every favor has its price. He agrees cheerfully, leaving to look for the old man. She gives him a heads up. Watch out for the pentagram treatment. They won't let you be, you know? He thanks her for the warning and is calm but on alert. In reality, he is planning to destroy those guys once and for all when the time comes. And if you liked the summary, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. If you enjoyed it, leave your comment for the next part. Subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next video.